Chapter 4376. Lu Yin's eyes flashed, and he muttered, "I still don't want to do it." "Ah, you will do it." A small door appeared beside him, and 8 Color's voice sounded out. "Lu Yin, use the origin scroll to block the heaven's perception. This is your mission." Lu Yin was about to retort, but 8 Color continued, "A mission issued in the name of the unknown is a battlefield order, and it is absolutely effective against the unknown. This is a battlefield. I repeat, this is a battlefield." Lu Yin's expression darkened. On the battlefield, everyone obeyed orders. He had gone from a normal person to a cultivator, and now, he had gone from a cultivator to a normal person. Cultivators could not transcend everything. No matter how high their cultivation was, they were still humans. They had walked step by step from being ordinary, and what they experienced was fighting with others, or rather, fighting with their own species. Cultivation could only raise the level of the environment, but it could not change the essence. An order. He was hearing this word again, but this time, he was the one saying it to others. "Hee, little guy, don't tell me you've forgotten why the unknowns invited you to join them. Looking back, do you think your human civilization would have survived if you hadn't joined the unknowns?" The old man said slowly. His words sent a chill down Lu Yin's spine. Only by truly understanding the unknown could one truly see the distance between them. The more he saw, the more he felt that he had been naive. Every step was filled with coincidences and opportunities, and one wrong step would have been the end of them. Lu Yin suddenly thought back to when Lan Mang had accepted the mission to deal with the 3 universes. Qinglian Yu clearly had the ability to kill him, but he had not done so. Lan Mang had blocked the unknown. If Lan Mang died, who would be the next to deal with the human civilization? De Mao? Er Mao? Or Old Ha? No one could say for sure. Many times, the enemy could not be killed. Although it was frustrating, it was a fact. Humans had suffered the same grievances, and the unknown would also suffer, but they could not see it. In this world, who would not lower their heads? No one could always look down on the world. Lu Yin looked at the square box in front of him. 8 Color, I can accept this mission, but I can't do it alone. I'll be facing skyward. You know what kind of existence skyward is? Even if it's still within the eternal dream, it's not something I can face. I need someone to accompany me. This request is not too much. The 8-colored voice said, "Sure." "Who is it?" "Yu Che," Lu Yin answered without hesitation. The old man was surprised. He had assumed that Lu Yin would choose Red Hero to go with him since she was Lu Yin's sworn enemy. He had never expected that Lu Yin would choose Yu Che. Of course, Lu Yin would not choose Red Hero, as he and Red Hero were enemies. If possible, he wanted to use Tell the Sky to kill Red Hero, but Red Hero would also want to use Tell the Sky to kill Lu Yin. Besides, what kind of existence was Tell the Sky? Was this something he could use? One must know one's limits. In the face of a lawsuit, they had to find someone they could trust to face it together and escape together. Clear was the best choice. That was because Che had given Xiang City to him. Although he was also an enemy, he knew very well that Che wanted to use him to seize Xiang City. Although he did not know what method Che would use, Che had done so, and he seemed very confident. Benefits were more reliable than anything else. If Che wanted to obtain Xiang City, he would have to use him. In that case, he would not allow him to be killed by Su Tian. Furthermore, he was the last person Yu Wu had seen before his death. Whatever Yu Wu had said to him, Che would definitely be interested. It could very well be related to the secret of controlling Xiang City. Che would definitely not allow him to be killed. Che is in another battlefield. He cannot be mobilized. 8-color refused. Lu Yin frowned. Find an unknown from this battlefield and switch with him. Eight Colors' voice sank. This is a battlefield. The reason you joined the unknown is to deal with Xianling Luyin. This is the first and last time I'm warning you. If Tell the Sky awakens, we will have to pay an unimaginable price. Your human civilization will have to pay an unimaginable price. Luyin took a deep breath. This threat made him feel a chill. Fine. Send anyone to come with me. He grabbed the square box. Is this an origin scroll? I've already taught you how to use it. Little guy, don't let Tell the Sky awaken. Even without Eight Colors' threat, aren't you afraid that Tell the Sky will accompany you, Lu, to destroy your human civilization? The old man chuckled. Lu Yin's expression changed. His emotions were complicated. Of course, this was what he was worried about. Xianling had to lose this battle, and it had to be defeated so badly that it could not cause trouble for the human civilization. This was because he did not know the reason why Xianling and the unknown were fighting. He did not know if this was the reason why the portal placed here had not been destroyed. He was most worried that after this battle, Yu Lu would tell Xianling about him. With his control of teleportation, Xianling would not let him go. The human civilization had to be prepared for this battle. In this battle, he had to do his best to injure Xianling. In all directions, the stars were compressed. Using Mingyu's method, Luyin looked at Xianling from afar. This tree, with one teleportation, could cross the distance of 30 years of an eternal life realm speed. Mingyu was shocked. The teleportation distance had increased. This human was hiding something. How hateful. It chased after him. Luyin teleported again and approached the Xianling tree. At this time, the small portal appeared and the eight-colored voice said, "Yellow is waiting for you in front. It has its opponent. You only have one chance. Take the yellow Xianling tree crown and activate the origin scroll. If you can't do it, Xianling will chase after you and you will not have another chance. Tell me the location." The center of the tree crown. Luyin opened his third eye and felt many gazes on him. There was a dazzling golden light in front of him. It was the yellow unknown. It was Mao, whom Luyin had called out before. He did not expect Mao to accompany him. This Mao was not friendly to him and hated the human civilization. But he had no choice. Behind Luyin, the feather god's spear appeared. Mingyu attacked instantly. Luyin teleported and appeared in the golden light. A shield. While he was stunned, Xianling arrived. Luyin touched the shield and teleported. Xianling appeared in front and behind him. One was Xianling, who was fighting against Mao, and the other was Mingyu. Mingyu watched Luyin disappear with the shield and then saw the Xianling in front of him. "Oh no," it screeched. On the Xianling tree, one of the Xianling trees spread its wings. Strange birds of all shapes and sizes flew around the tree crown. Luyin brought the shield and teleported into the tree crown. He teleported to the center again and looked at one of the Xianling trees. "This is the one that has been guarding here. Go over." The voice of the shield sounded. It was Mao. Luyin did not expect Mao to be a shield. He teleported over. Past the Xianling trees, the Xianling trees also teleported and attacked. Luyin lifted the shield and said, Mao, block it." The Xianling tree's claws collided with a loud sound. This attack caused Luyin to vomit blood. This Xianling tree was much stronger than Mingyu. It was definitely at the peak of 2 or even close to 3 laws. It was no wonder that Old Man Kiki and the others could not break in. In front of him was a giant egg that emitted a hazy glow. Gray swirled around it, as if dark clouds had appeared above the egg. This was the power of time itself. Just looking at this egg caused Luyin to feel fear from the bottom of his heart. It was not fear, but an instinctive fear. It was like a mortal facing a giant and falling into a giant's battlefield. At the same time, Xian Ling and Mingyu, who were fighting against Air Mao, charged over. Lu Yin took out the origin scroll, put it down, and tapped it. The origin scroll made a soft click. He had succeeded. Lu Yin growled, "Let's go." Bang! The shield was struck by the claws and slammed into Lu Yin's back. Lu Yin took advantage of this opportunity to teleport away with it. Air Mao had no intention of harming Lu Yin. Like Lu Yin, they could only survive by working together. Even Air Mao was in danger at every step. Just as they teleported away, a sourcebox array appeared above the treetop. There was nothing special about it. It was like a flash of light that disappeared in the blink of an eye. Lu Yin did not even have time to look at it, but now was not the time to do so. He teleported away with Air Mao, and just as he was about to push Air Mao away, they had already left the treetop. Air Mao also wanted to push Lu Yin away at the same time. The two stared at each other. "You want to harm me? You want to harm me?" Above him, Xian Ling attacked. She was facing Air Mao, the one that had been killed. Lu Yin did not hesitate to teleport away. He would leave this guy to Air Mao. He looked back at the treetop and could not understand. If a sourcebox array could be set up, then it could naturally be broken as well. But why would such a simple task make the unknown so concerned? Even Xian Ling was on guard. There had to be something that he did not understand. But it did not matter. His mission was complete. He thought that Mingyu would continue to chase after him, but after teleporting several times, Lu Yin realized that Mingyu did not chase after him at all. Was she thinking of a way to break the sourcebox array? He looked at the treetop, which had exceeded the maximum range of his mirroring technique. He then looked around him. Door after door shattered, and Lu Yin frowned as he increased his speed. Although Xian Ling had been destroying the doors before, she had not been able to do so quickly. Now, not only were Xian Ling's subordinates attacking, but even Mingyu was destroying the doors. He felt that something was amiss, and he teleported to the place where he had placed the door. However, the door had already been destroyed, and there were still traces of its destruction in the void. There was a shriek behind him, and Lu Yin casually waved his hand, slicing through the void and killing the bird. He then teleported away from this place. No matter what Xian Ling was planning, he had to escape first. After leaving the immortal plume tree, Lu Yin found a barren planet to rest. There were no battles nearby, and he rested for half a year. During this time, 8 colors had not contacted him even once. He teleported closer to the immortal plume tree's battlefield, and it was still the same as it had been half a year ago. Air Mao and the others all had their own opponents, and Xian Ling was still destroying the doors. Now, not even 1% of the doors remained, and they were scattered throughout the universe. Lu Yin suddenly did not understand this battle. Xian Ling was not chasing after him, but rather, it was constantly destroying the doors. What was the point of this? The civilizations that it had attracted were not enough to pose a threat to Xian Ling. Or could it be that Xian Ling's goal was not to destroy the doors that had attracted civilizations, but to destroy other doors instead? For example, the door that led to the location of the immortal plume tree. The Apex mobile version website. Chapter 4377. When he thought of this, he suddenly understood that the immortal plume's teleportation required a time difference. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. The greatest advantage of teleportation was its distance. How could he have forgotten about this? When the Hive civilization attacked the human civilization, it was because of the distance advantage. Once the distance was increased, the humans would definitely lose. Their response was to lure the Hive civilization into a certain range for a decisive battle. Now, the immortal plume had the same plan. They probably wanted to destroy all the portals and then combine all the immortal plume to gain the distance advantage. The unknown also had a way to teleport, but the portals required time. Even 1 second was enough for the immortal plume to attack. 1 immortal plume was 1 attack, but what about 10? Lu Yin looked into the distance. This should be the case. He took a deep breath. If he could think of it, the 8 colors would definitely be able to as well. He never thought of himself as the smartest. The unknown understood the immortal plume far better than he did. It was impossible for it not to see through it. However, they had no choice. Teleportation was an absolute method. Even if they could see through the immortal plume's goal, how could they break it? The only thing the unknown could do was to fix the battlefield at the immortal plume tree from the beginning. This was the immortal plume's nest, and they could not give it up. The other battlefield should be at the unknown whereabouts. That was the unknown's nest, and they could not give it up either. Both sides were attacking each other's weakness. The entire battle was clear. Lu Yin retreated. He had already completed a mission. As long as the 8 colors did not rush him, he would hide first. At most, he would say that he was injured. What happened next would be tragic. Just as Lu Yin expected, not long after, all the portals were destroyed. A vast and terrifying aura shook the heavens and stretched out endlessly. Even where Lu Yin was, he felt an indescribable pressure. It was at the level of Patriarch Shan. An existence that matched the 3 laws of the universe had made a move. Was it an immortal plume or an unknown? Lu Yin looked into the distance. He was not going there. Far away, around the immortal plume tree, immortal plume soared and attacked Air Mao. The old man and the black unknown. 3 more immortal plume came. They were the 3 immortal plume that were fighting in the other battlefield. They instantly returned and surrounded this battlefield. Air Mao fled in a hurry, but he could only resist the teleportation. The old man was sent running away. The absolute darkness outside of the unknown darkness was also pierced through like a broken cave. But then, another portal appeared. Big Mao and Yu Che attacked at the same time. The immortal plume tree had become the only battlefield. It was so intense that Lu Yin didn't want to get involved. He saw the Lord's river of time being drawn out. The old man had appeared again. He saw the surging divine power boiling. That must be De Mao's power. Over at Xian Ling's side, Feather God's spear would pierce through the starry sky from time to time. The universe was being destroyed bit by bit like a flat surface. The entire area seemed incomparably small. Lu Yin retreated even further, as 8 colors had no energy to deal with him. Actually, he wanted to get closer to the battlefield to take a look. At this time, he should be able to see something, such as Clear's true strength, the unknown form of black, and the 8 colors. Perhaps even the 8 colors had joined the battle. But he couldn't go. In this kind of war, the slightest carelessness would result in the end. While the battle was intense, Lu Yin was also suffering from the weight. Suddenly, all the pressure disappeared. He abruptly looked into the distance. What was going on? In the distant battlefield, all the immortal feathers instantly disappeared, leaving behind only the unknown. With the immortal plume tree and the shielded heaven. Return immediately. All the unknown opened the door and entered heaven. After all, the door's movement was not as fast as teleportation. The moment they returned to heaven, the immortal feathers had already launched a round of attacks on heaven. On the ground, almost half of the endless door was destroyed. The soaring immortal feathers danced around the divine tree and let out a cheerful chirp. The moment you tried your best to shield heaven, you had already lost. There are some prices you don't want to pay, but you have to pay a greater price. Heaven shook heaven. 8 colors responded, let's see if this price is worth it. The immortal plume tree was silent. Lu Yin teleported several times to get closer to the battlefield and looked into the distance. Gone, everyone was gone. The battlefield could move at will. By now, everyone should have moved to heaven. Against the immortal feathers, even the unknown was passive. That's right, since the immortal feathers had run away, their nest should be defenseless. He looked at the immortal plume tree. Would there be something good? Like a turbid treasure. It was very tempting, but after thinking about it, Lu Yin decided to continue hiding. Heaven was still there. Heaven knew if it would suddenly awaken. At this moment, a sword suddenly appeared above the immortal plume tree. It was completely transparent. The moment it appeared, Lu Yin's scalp went numb. It was both horrifying and familiar. It was that sharp edge. That sharp edge that tore apart the meteor realm and the three universes and almost killed Startlegate Shangyu. It was a transparent unknown. Lu Yin watched in shock as the transparent sword slashed down from above. Its target was the immortal plume tree. Just when he thought that the immortal plume tree was going to be pierced by the sword, a shocking claw appeared. What followed was a suffocating pressure. The stars changed color. There was only that sharp claw on the sky and the earth. There was only the immortal feather that was slowly walking out. At this moment, the distance of inches was replaced by the immortal feather. Lu Yin only felt that his chest was so tight that he wanted to vomit blood. Layers of pressure swept past. The flying birds that had helped the immortal feather to fight against the various civilizations all crawled and shivered. The immortal plume tree was slightly bent at this moment. It was as if a giant had walked into a kingdom of ants. At this moment, the giant woke up. Heaven. An unfamiliar voice was heard. It came from a transparent unknown. Lu Yin was stunned. That was heaven. Wasn't it blocked? I knew you would ambush me. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Come on. As it spoke, the sharp claw grabbed the transparent blade. There was a crisp bang. Not only did the blade break, but the entire universe also shattered into countless fragments. It was unknown how far the ripples spread. In front of Lu Yin, the void shattered. He hurriedly dodged. Even so, his arm was still scratched with a huge bloody wound. With a flash of the sharp edge, a section of the immortal plume tree's crown was cut off. Heaven and the transparent unknown disappeared together. Lu Yin stood in place and panted heavily. He looked up and saw the immortal plume tree with a section of its crown cut off. As for heaven, it was gone. The next moment, the crown of the immortal plume tree distorted. Two figures walked out and stood there. One was Mingyu. Lu Yin recognized her. The other was, the immortal master. The one who walked out at the same time as Mingyu was the immortal master. Below them, there was a strange bird at the eternal life level. It was still crawling. It was too close to heaven just now. It was so close that it was almost crushed to death. At this moment, a small door appeared beside Lu Yin. 8 colors contacted him. Lu Yin, destroy the immortal plume tree. Lu Yin was still there. He hadn't recovered from heaven's awakening. When he heard 8 colors' words, he suppressed his anger. You already knew that heaven would awaken, didn't you? You even asked me to block it. You're trying to kill me. Heaven's target is not you. The result of this battle is a foregone conclusion. Destroy the immortal plume tree. This battle is over. You will receive the 6 stars mission reward, 8 colors said. Lu Yin's breathing was rapid. He remembered that in the unknown knowledge of human civilization, there were missions that required a 6 stars mission reward to exchange for. Even on this battlefield, he didn't know when he would be able to complete the 6 stars mission reward. After all, he had been forced to complete the 5 stars mission reward. 6 stars mission reward. The immortal plume tree has been dragged away. Heaven has also been taken away. The immortal plume tree doesn't have the power to kill you. Lu Yin, destroy the immortal plume tree. This battle is over. With that, the small door disappeared. Lu Yin clenched his fist and looked into the distance. It was easy to say, but Ming Yu was still there. Fortunately, there was also an immortal master. Without the immortal master, Lu Yin really didn't have the confidence to destroy the immortal plume tree. The immortal plume tree was already cautious enough. Ming Yu had appeared here to guard against him because he was missing. However, it had made a mistake by bringing the immortal master here. Far away, on top of the immortal plume tree, Ming Yu's gaze was cold. Where was that human? They had killed their way to heaven's trace together, but it didn't see that human. It knew that he was still nearby. Although it was confident in getting rid of that human, it couldn't take the risk for the safety of the immortal plume tree. This battle had taken a lot of effort to form this situation, giving heaven's ancestor a chance to kill the unknown envoy of balance. The outcome of the battle had been decided. However, it wasn't enough for it. It wouldn't feel comfortable if it didn't kill that human. On the side, Qinghe emitted a faint glow. Luo Chan was on top of it. The immortal master looked into the distance. It had been brought here before the battle and only appeared now to protect the immortal plume tree at the last moment. It didn't want to participate in this battle, but it had no choice. It couldn't go against the immortal plume tree's orders. The location of the final battle is in Heaven's Trace. It should be safe here, the immortal master's voice rang out. Ming Yu's tone was low. The immortal master didn't understand. You're missing one. Ming Yu said, there's a human among the unknowns. He's a scoundrel, but he comprehended teleportation. If I don't kill him, I won't feel at ease. The immortal master's originally calm heart was stirred by Ming Yu's words. Wasn't the unknown's human scoundrel Lu Yin? Lu Yin was nearby. For some reason, it felt uneasy. Why was this happening? Because Luo Chan had been captured, the Hive civilization had suffered heavy losses. It had been forced to bring Lu Yin to the Seven Treasures Heavenly Toad clan as a bodyguard. After that, it had settled its grudges with that human civilization. However, it shouldn't feel this uneasy about Lu Yin. In fact, it even felt apprehensive. So why was it like this? Wait, did he comprehend teleportation? Lu Yin knew teleportation. The immortal master was stunned. Thinking back, when did he comprehend teleportation? That shouldn't be the case. How could a human know teleportation? That was Immortal Plume's ultimate technique. Luo Chan knew it. It suddenly recalled the time when Luo Chan had been captured. Was it that time? Chapter 4378. It had forgotten that it had seen Lu Yin capture Luo Chan with teleportation, that the human civilization had severely injured it, and that it had learned about Yu Lu and Xian Ling's situation. It had forgotten all of these. The only thing it remembered was that it had suddenly appeared in an unfamiliar starry sky and was severely injured. However, it did not know who had injured it. Now, Ming Yu's words and the instinctive uneasiness in its heart made it think of a certain fact. It couldn't be. But if it was him, why did he let it go? The Divine Master could not understand. What's wrong with you? Ming Yu asked as he glanced at the Divine Master coldly. The Divine Master said, why can humans teleport? Ming Yu stared at Qinghe for a while before looking away. How would I know? But other than Xian Ling, no civilization is allowed to teleport. This human must die. After this battle, we'll kill our way to that human civilization. Yu Lu has been watching them for a long time. The Divine Master fell silent. Kill their way to that human universe? The Hive civilization had done this before. They thought that they had an absolute advantage, but in the end, that was what happened. Other than their strength, the most terrifying thing about humans was their scheming. It did not want to participate in the war against the human civilization. If Lu Yin could teleport, who knew what else he could do? Go and guard the other side. Be careful. Although that human's teleportation is not complete, other than the range limitation, it's no different from Xianling's. In particular, he's very strong and has escaped from me several times. Don't underestimate him, Mingyu reminded. The Divine Master said, understood. With that, he headed to the other side of the tree crown. Below, strange birds circled around the Xianling's tree, not giving any creatures a chance to take advantage of it. To Xianling, this tree was home. It was extremely important. Although Mingyu had been very cautious when speaking to the Immortal Master, deep down, she did not think of Lu Yin as a threat at all. Lu Yin had always avoided her, and the Immortal Master's strength was not any weaker than hers. With these two powerhouses protecting him, Lu Yin would not dare to show himself even if he was nearby. It did not even think about what would happen to Lu Yin. The accident happened so suddenly. In Mingyu's eyes, a figure suddenly appeared, followed closely by the Sword Dao River. The golden light of the God Investiture Catalogue was glaring and dazzling. Mingyu's gaze turned from shock to anger, and from anger to intense killing intent. This human actually dared to attack it. He raised his claw and waved it. The Sword Dao River was easily torn apart. Mingyu screamed, "Human, you're courting death." On the other side of the crown of the immortal plume tree, the Immortal Master gazed into the distance. Lu Yin had actually come. Where did he get the confidence to deal with both the immortal plume tree and Mingyu at the same time? There was eternal life below. Impossible. He couldn't be courting death. There were still experts hiding in the dark. Lu Yin's celestial eye abruptly opened, and purple eye force descended as external eye incarnation appeared. Mingyu's claw tore through the Sword Dao River, and the feather god's spear pierced towards Lu Yin. It had already prepared itself for Lu Yin to escape. This human's sudden attack was definitely not suicidal. This was a ploy to lure it away. Lu Yin stared at the feather god's spear as a black piece of armor appeared in front of him. The feather god's spear ruthlessly pierced the black armor. Mingyu's intense killing intent once again turned into astonishment. Impossible, this human actually blocked his feather god's spear. Before it could think further, the separated long river of swordsmanship turned around again and slashed. Mingyu did not believe that Lu Yin could actually block the feather god's spear, and it immediately stabbed out with the feather god's spear one after another, constantly colliding with the external eye incarnation's 15 armor plates. Lu Yin knew that only the 15 plates could block the feather god's spear. After all, the feather god's spear was an absolute power that could seal Ancestor Shan, who had fused with 3 laws. However, Mingyu did not know this. It only knew that the external eye incarnation had blocked its feather god's spear. It had absorbed eternal life and strengthened the absolute power of myriad Dao's coalescence. It should have been able to break through all external attacks, so why had it been blocked? The Sword Dao River ruthlessly slashed at Mingyu, but it was completely unharmed. However, the Dao's sword was hidden within the river, and it was trying to sneak an attack on Mingyu. Mingyu suddenly disappeared. Lu Yin's heart sank, he had been discovered. Mingyu appeared behind Lu Yin. Trying to sneak an attack with karma. Human, you underestimate me too much. Mingyu's sharp claws descended and viciously clawed at the external eye incarnation. It wanted to see just how strong this thing's defenses were. Lu Yin frowned, and his body withered as he released his heavenly Dao of karma. He pointed at Mingyu and swept out with 2 fingers, severing karma. Mingyu teleported and disappeared, completely unaffected. At the same time, Lu Yin teleported away to avoid Mingyu's attack. The external eye incarnation could only be used at critical moments. If it was used for a long time, Mingyu could easily see through it. Mingyu continued to stab with the feather god's spear. It was as if the situation had returned to how it was before, and Lu Yin was constantly being chased. The immortal master kept watching, and below, the eternal bird was also watching. If Mingyu did not allow them to interfere, they would not interfere. Lu Yin glanced into the distance. The immortal master had no intention of interfering at all. He did not pose a threat to Mingyu. Now, they had appeared to protect the immortal plume tree, which was more important than killing him. However, this also meant that he had a way out. If there was no pressure, then there was pressure. Lu Yin's gaze was cold. In the starry sky above his heart, the divine power planet rotated. It was time to move. It was time to use this power. This battlefield was giving him too much pressure. He was actually not qualified to participate in a battle of this level, but for the sake of survival and for the sake of human civilization, he had to step out. Fortunately, because he had used it once before, the three-line divine power transformation could barely maintain a trace of rationality. However, he did not need it now. The red and silver lines of divine power appeared and intersected. In an instant, a glaring light burst out from both eyes. One eye was red, the other was silver. Boiling divine power soared into the sky and turned into a rainbow that pierced through the starry sky. The two-colored divine power sprinkled down. Although it was not as shocking as the three-colored divine power, it still caused Mingyu's eyes to jump. What the hell? Two unknown divine powers? Why did it seem like he had heard of it before? This should not be a power that a scoundrel should possess. The two-colored divine power turned into a mist that circled around his body. The red and silver in Lu Yin's eyes retracted, and he stared at the stunned Mingyu with a palm strike. The divine power beam bombarded Mingyu. Mingyu raised his sharp claws and waved them. With a boom, the starry sky collapsed, and Mingyu was forced back. He looked at the other side in disbelief. What a powerful divine power. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. He took a step forward and charged toward Mingyu. If it had been the three-colored divine power beam, Mingyu would not have been able to withstand it so easily. Previously, the clay blade had been dented by the three-colored divine power beam. Both the clay blade and Mingyu were powerhouses that were compatible with two laws of the universe. Their strength was similar. If the three-line divine power could defeat the clay blade, it could defeat Mingyu as well, provided that Mingyu did not escape. Of course, this was based on the power that Mingyu had released. In reality, the immortal plume civilization was much stronger than the muddy country. Mingyu must have some hidden cards. Mingyu's eyes were ferocious. He teleported and appeared above Lu Yin's head. His sharp claws fell. Beside him, the feather god's spears surrounded him. If it had been the three-line divine power transformation, Lu Yin would not have thought of dodging. However, he was now using the two-line divine power transformation. His instincts and battle experience were still there. He also teleported to dodge and shot out a divine power beam. In a split second, an intense battle broke out around the immortal plume tree. It was clearly just two creatures, but it felt as if they were fighting an army of thousands of men and horses. They constantly teleported and fought around the tree. Each time, the aftershock spread to the surroundings and affected the many creatures below. Mingyu realized that she couldn't do anything to Lu Yin at this moment. His divine power had formed a terrifying armor around Lu Yin that her feather god's spear could pierce through, but Lu Yin could also dodge it. Lu Yin's divine power attacks combined with the feather god spear's ability to absorb energy when it reached an extreme allowed him to injure Mingyu for the first time. At that moment, the feathers burned. Blood flowed from the corner of Mingyu's mouth. His gaze was extremely gloomy. He was a powerhouse that was compatible with two laws of the universe. However, he had been injured by a rascal from the human civilization. This was unforgivable. Kill, kill, kill. Mingyu's eyes were filled with madness. The feather god's spears pierced out without restraint. Some even pierced the immortal plume tree while others pierced the creatures guarding the tree below. Blood splattered across the starry sky. Lu Yin constantly teleported to dodge. The rainbow of divine power was like a colorful lamp that illuminated the starry sky. Occasionally, the path sword would pierce Mingyu. Mingyu's eyes were dazed, and he did not know what to do for a moment. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Yin once again used his terrifying strength, coupled with the divine power transformation. He tore off a small tuft of fur on Mingyu's head and left a wound on his head. Blood flowed down his head and dripped into his eye sockets. He looked rather miserable. Mingyu suddenly stopped and stood in the starry sky. He looked down blankly and did not move. In Lu Yin's hand, he was still holding on to that tuft of fur. He raised his hand and burned it with divine power, turning it into ashes. He blew away the ashes. His red and silver eyes were filled with evil intent. It's just a strange bird. Kill it and make it into soup. Mingyu looked up. His eyes were unprecedentedly cold. He said something strange in the starry sky. There are lies in the universe, and there are true and false guardians. I want to protect you. Even though Lu Yin's mind was being eroded by divine power, he was still stunned. Protect him. Feather god spears suddenly appeared and pierced towards Lu Yin. Lu Yin instinctively wanted to dodge, but when the feather god spears got close, they collided with each other and created dazzling sparks in front of Lu Yin's eyes. Lu Yin looked on in shock. Beside him, not a single feather god spear was piercing towards him. All the feather god spears were being knocked away by the same number of feather god spears. What was going on? Mingyu was hitting his own feather god spears. Something was not right. Lu Yin recalled what Mingyu had just said. There are lies in the universe, and there are true and false guardians. Was this the second law of the universe that he fit? Lu Yin immediately teleported and disappeared. Mingyu teleported at the same time. His sharp claws fell and grabbed at Lu Yin's head. Lu Yin raised his hand and shot out a beam of divine power. It collided with the sharp claws and forced Mingyu back. A large number of feather god spears descended, but they were all knocked away by his own feather god spears. Just as he had said, he was protecting Lu Yin. However, he was also the one being attacked. The uneasiness grew stronger. Lu Yin could only keep teleporting and shooting out beams of divine power. Before the feather god spears collided with each other, he would knock them away or pull away. He realized that the feather god spears needed a certain distance to collide with each other. They had to be within a certain range of him. Could this be the world that Mingyu could not see? Just as he was thinking, he heard a voice beside his ear. Mingyu's voice was extremely cold. True and false, guardian. As soon as he finished speaking, all the points around Lu Yin that the feather god spears had collided with seemed to move along with his body. It was as if they had fixed coordinates. They appeared one by one like stars in the night sky, decorating the darkness. Finally, they all fell towards his body. Chapter 43-79. Lu Yin teleported, but in an instant, all of these light dots passed through and disappeared along with Lu Yin's teleportation. Far away, Lu Yin appeared and slowly lowered his head. His body was bleeding profusely as the light dots pierced through his body. There were dozens of light dots, and Lu Yin was severely injured in an instant. Lu Yin spat out a mouthful of blood and looked into the distance in shock. Mingyu's lips curled up as he stared at Lu Yin coldly. Do you really think that a mere scoundrel can fight against an existence that is compatible with two universal laws? Furthermore, I'm Mingyu from Xianling. Who do you think you are? A mere human, a lowly species, dares to challenge someone of a higher realm. Die. As he spoke, he teleported closer to Lu Yin, and the feather god spears stabbed towards him. Lu Yin immediately pulled away, not allowing any of the feather god spears to collide with him within a certain range. However, in the end, he was unable to avoid all of the feather god spears. 2 feather god spears flashed as they collided, and then they pierced through his body. Lu Yin coughed out blood again, and his face turned pale. Even his divine power could not withstand this attack. Ming Yu's sharp claws grabbed at the stars, and the starry sky was like a square inch. He played with the universe and encompassed heaven and earth. He wanted to completely suppress Lu Yin under his claws. On the crown of the tree, the immortal master was silent. Lu Yin was very strong, much stronger than he had expected. He had not seen him for a while, but he could actually fight against Ming Yu with his scoundrel strength. This meant that he could also fight against the immortal master. But so what? Ming Yu was not an ordinary powerhouse. He came from Xianling and was one of the strongest civilizations in the square inch. This person was finished. Lu Yin looked up, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. The pain in his body woke him up, but it was not enough. Ming Yu was too strong, and it was difficult for him to control his strength. This was especially true for the guard of truth and falsehood. He could not find a way to resist it in a short period of time. The immortal world could not be forcibly broken, but he could not do it. He was not an immortal realm cultivator, and Ming Yu was much stronger than him. Lu Yin glanced into the distance and then looked at the immortal master. The immortal master still did not intend to make a move. The immortal master and Lu Yin looked at each other, and the immortal master suddenly felt uneasy. How could this be? Lu Yin seemed to want him to make a move. Why? Ming Yu's sharp claws descended and viciously swiped at Lu Yin. Back in the Mirage domain, he had asked Chu Songyun to use Senior Jiuwen's red umbrella to create a birdcage, but that birdcage was not enough to deal with Ming Yu. After all, Ming Yu's defenses were not something that Lu Yin could easily break through. Furthermore, he did not necessarily need a birdcage to deal with someone like Yu Lu, as crow immobilization was more than enough. Then, he would use the pain in his body as the key to awakening, just like how he had used the death of the ancestor of the Mountain Sword sect as the key to maintaining his sanity. Third line, Divine Power Transformation. The sharp claws slammed down on Lu Yin's head. Blue threads of divine power flew out from his body and intersected with the red and silver threads. In an instant, his surging divine power soared into the sky, and the terrifying divine power instantly drowned out his rationality. Lu Yin grabbed at the bleeding wounds on his body, and the pain caused him to sober up. Above his head, the sharp claw descended. He suddenly looked up and roared at the sky as a wave of divine power was released from his body and fiercely attacked the claw. The sharp claws were blocked, and then a terrifying force overturned Ming Yu, causing him to retreat step by step. Ming Yu was aghast. How could this be? Three-colored divine power. The three-colored rainbow exploded high in the sky and turned into smoke that enveloped Lu Yin, forming a cocoon. Ming Yu stared blankly and then screeched. Feather god spears stabbed at the cocoon, piercing through everything. The feather god spears that were blocked by the divine power pierced the cocoon, and most of them sank into it. However, they were blocked by the boiling divine power within the cocoon and could not advance any further. Ming Yu's pupils shrank, and he suddenly spread out his wings, releasing all of his power. Feather god spears soared into the air and stabbed at the cocoon. Since they could not directly pierce through the divine power, they would wait for Lu Yin to come out before attacking. The guard of truth and falsehood could not be avoided. Within the cocoon, the three colors constantly changed, and outside, the feather god spears were also constantly attacking. The number of attacks was much more than the first time he had injured Lu Yin. Ming Yu did not believe that this human could not be killed with so many attacks. No matter how dense this person's divine power was, he would not be able to withstand the attacks of so many feather god spears at the same time. Die, die, die. Within the cocoon, Lu Yin's eyes widened as he looked at the feather god spears outside. If this was the first time he had used the three-colored divine power transformation, he might have been able to withstand it. When he fought against the mud blade, he did not have any techniques to block it. He just had to face it head-on and rely on his divine power to make himself invincible. But at this moment, his last bit of rationality told him that if he continued to resist, he would most likely die. There were simply too many feather god spears. He could withstand 10 at a time, but if there were 100, 1,000, or even more, how could he withstand it? On his forehead, the celestial eye stared at Mingyu, and the cocoon slowly faded away. Mingyu's eyes widened. Here it comes, die. Suddenly, Mingyu could not move. Black jumping wires of different lengths had appeared beside him at some point, making it difficult for him to move. What is this? Lu Yin teleported in front of Mingyu, and countless specks of light lit up around him. The guard of truth and falsehood had an unprecedented number of attacks. The starry sky was completely destroyed. These feather god spears completely enveloped Lu Yin, making it difficult for him to dodge. But at this moment, Mingyu was in front of Lu Yin. Mingyu could not move, and because of its large size, it could block all the attacks from the feather god spears in front of him. As for behind him, there was the external pupil avatar, the 15 black armor plates, and the boiling divine power. The glaring light drowned out the starry sky, bringing a bright spot of light to this dark and deep space. Mingyu let out a shrill cry. Its huge body had taken half of the attacks from the feather god spears, and even its body could not withstand them all. Blood splattered across the starry sky, and the feathers on its body were torn apart. The screams terrified the strange birds under the Xianyu tree. Lu Yin was not in a good state either. Even with the 15 black armor plates blocking for him, his body had taken about a fifth of the feather god spear's attacks. Half of his body had been torn apart, and if not for his vigorous divine power, it would not have been as simple as being torn apart. He would have been annihilated. There were too many feather god spears. Mingyu wanted to kill Lu Yin in one go, but it did not expect to take half of them. When the feather god spear's attacks were over, Lu Yin turned around and struck Mingyu with his palm. At that moment, a huge beak suddenly appeared. It came from the eternal level flying bird that had been guarding the Xianyu tree all this time. Now, it had made its move. Lu Yin waved his hand, and a beam of divine power swept across the starry sky, severely injuring the flying bird. Ordinary eternal level beings could not withstand Lu Yin's bombardment of divine power. A wave of energy came from afar. Its target was not Lu Yin, but Mingyu. This wave of energy came from the immortal master. The single energy art condensed the energy of life into a single wave of energy that struck Mingyu. It sent Mingyu flying out of the range of the black lines that were enveloped by the immobilization crow. Mingyu's body was sent flying in a sorry state. His eyes stared at Lu Yin as he cried out, "Ten-eyed crow. This is the power of the ten-eyed crow." Lu Yin looked at Mingyu. Mingyu suddenly closed his eyes. I can't look at the eye on this person's forehead. Bug, kill him. The immortal master made his move. He really did not want to fight Lu Yin, and he did not expect Mingyu to be so severely injured. At this moment, Mingyu had even forgotten that Lu Yin had crow immobilization and was frozen in place. Lu Yin raised a hand, grabbed Go Lian, and compressed his boiling god force into it before slashing at it. Behind him, the immortal master stared blankly at this scene. He was also dumbfounded, as the Tao sword had come out from his body. He had seen it and sensed it. As expected, he had been inexplicably injured because of this person. This person had buried the power of karma in his body. At this moment, the immortal master felt as if his life was under Lu Yin's control, and he did not even dare to attack. If Lu Yin could bury a Dao sword in his body, then he could bury a second one. With a hiss, Mingyu opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. A huge slash wound ran along his head and nearly tore his body apart. Lu Yin slashed at him again, and the pain stimulated Mingyu. He regained his senses and wanted to teleport away, but he could not move at all under crow immobilization. Lu Yin slashed at Go Lian again and again, and Mingyu's body was torn apart. Blood and flesh stuck to feathers as Mingyu let out a mournful wail. He looked at Lu Yin and the stunned immortal master. "Why aren't you attacking?" "A bug." The immortal master looked at Lu Yin's back, and an indescribable chill enveloped him. He did not know what to do. Chapter 4380. In the distance, the eternal level bird turned around and fled. Lu Yin's Go Lian viciously stabbed into Mingyu's body, piercing right through it. Mingyu's aura weakened to the extreme. "If you don't want to be hunted down by Xianling, then kill those things." Lu Yin growled. Of course, his words were directed at the immortal master. The immortal master was conflicted. At his level, he had never imagined that he would encounter such a situation one day. Lu Yin barked, "Otherwise, I'll kill you. You have more than one path sword in your body." Immortal took the initiative and got Luo Chan to teleport it to chase after the strange birds. Luo Chan trembled. It was a tool used by Xianling to keep an eye on the immortal master, but it was also a bug. At this moment, it did not know who it should listen to. The main point was that Mingyu was already in such a state and was definitely going to die. What should it do? It did not know either. Escape. It could escape, but it couldn't. It couldn't leave the immortal master. Lu Yin had used the Dao sword to control the immortal master's fate. Xianling had also used the Luo Chan to control the immortal master's fate. The immortal master couldn't shake off any of them. It all depended on who was above and who was below. Lu Yin pulled the Go Lian back, causing its scarlet blood to drip down. He raised the Go Lian and placed it on Mingyu's neck. At this moment, Mingyu's aura was unstable, and he could be killed at any moment. Go Lian's blade slashed into Mingyu's neck. Lu Yin stared at Mingyu. "You are the strongest creature I've faced so far. If it wasn't for the immortal master, I wouldn't have been able to do anything to you. However, it's all over now. You are the first, and definitely not the last. Xianling, you must die." After saying this, Go Lian slashed backwards, cutting Mingyu's neck in half, putting Mingyu on the brink of death. Then, it threw Mingyu into Mount Supreme. It still wanted to increase its own karma, but time was of the essence, and no one knew when the final battle on Jizong's side would end. Lu Yin turned to look at the immortal plume tree. The Qinghe realm had already spread out and enveloped all the creatures that were guarding the immortal plume tree. However, the immortal master was still hesitant when he made his move. Lu Yin took a deep breath. He couldn't deactivate the tricolor transformation just yet. Once he did, it would be difficult for him to move. His injuries this time were more serious than the last time he fought with Mud Blade. With that thought in mind, Lu Yin teleported and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in the Qinghe realm, facing the strange bird that had reached the eternal level. "Immortal Master, you dare to betray Xianling. Xianling will not let you off." That strange bird shouted. The immortal master was sullen. Xianling controlled his life, but so did Lu Yin. Before he could finish his thoughts, divine power pierced through the void and tore a hole in the Qinghe realm, shocking the immortal master. The eternal level bird was heavily injured. Lu Yin casually picked it up and threw it into Mount Supreme. Every eternal level creature was very precious. Then, he continuously teleported, slaughtering the birds that were guarding the immortal plume tree. Every time he teleported, a bird would be killed, and countless creatures would wither into rain. Although these creatures were as insignificant as ants in front of the immortal plume tree, it still caused a blood-red rain that dyed many leaves red. Lu Yin put Go Lian away as the final bird died in front of him, its corpse falling to the ground. He turned to look at the immortal master. The immortal master was silent, not saying anything. Lu Yin teleported to the top of the immortal plume tree again. He looked down at the tree and raised his hand. A rainbow of God force came crashing down, intending to shatter the immortal plume tree. However, the immortal plume tree's toughness was beyond Lu Yin's expectations, and it was actually comparable to the defenses of a powerhouse who had fused with two of the universe's laws. At this moment, Lu Yin had expended a lot of his godly power, so he was unable to completely destroy it. Fortunately, he found the broken transparent sword. It probably belonged to that transparent unknown entity. Lu Yin grabbed it. There was still divine power lingering on the transparent sword. This divine power was gentler than any other divine power that Lu Yin had ever sensed. It was strangely gentle. If divine power was like a wild horse that had broken free of its reins, then this divine power was like a tamed horse. Divine power was still divine power, but its nature had changed. At this moment, Lu Yin was still overwhelmed by divine power. It was hard for him to think too much. He gripped the sword hilt tightly, and tricolored divine power lingered in his body. From top to bottom, he slashed. A huge crack split the entire immortal plume tree from top to bottom. The immortal master looked on in shock. The immortal plume civilization had always lived on this tree. Now, it was split apart by humans. He knew a little about the grudge between the immortal plume tree and humans. Was this karma? Lu Yin gripped the sword hilt tightly as he recalled the scenes he knew. The immortal plume tree danced happily in the sky above the stronghold, forcing countless people to die tragically. This blood debt had just begun. With a low roar, the immortal plume tree was split into two. The transparent sword in his hand shattered as well. The moment the immortal plume tree was split apart, the entire universe changed in front of Lu Yin's eyes. In an instant, he saw a huge tree that filled the entire space. It was boundlessly far away, and he saw many other mother trees connected to it. He saw that the entire universe was enveloped by some kind of power, and he also saw a huge river that traversed the starry sky. But in an instant, everything returned to normal. Was that an illusion? He looked at the split tree, raised his hand, and touched it. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Regardless of whether this tree belonged to the immortal plume tree, there was nothing wrong with the tree itself. His heart suddenly trembled, and an unprecedented amount of green light appeared from the tree and surged into the starry sky above Lu Yin's heart. He had never absorbed so many green light spots from a single mother tree. It could even be said that none of the green light spots he had absorbed before could compare to this one. The green light spots were like countless fireflies that flew into the starry sky above his heart. They merged with the green light spots from before and formed a green ribbon in the starry sky. Lu Yin looked at the green ribbon and thought of the Nirvana tree technique. With the tree as the source, the branches would spread out. In the starry sky above his heart, the green light spots gradually took the shape of a tree under Lu Yin's control. Although the Nirvana tree technique had been created by him, Lu Yin had yet to cultivate it. It wasn't time yet. He was waiting for a feeling where success would follow naturally. However, that feeling had never appeared. Now, that feeling had appeared. The green light spots gave him the feeling of a tree, as if he should use those green light spots to form a tree. Previously, he had taught every cultivator that cultivated the Nirvana tree technique to be a single green light spot, but he was going to consume all of it. As the tree gradually took shape, Lu Yin spread out his arms. His entire body seemed to fuse with something as a warm current flowed into his limbs and bones. He didn't know what this warm current was, but it had appeared. It was as if someone was watering him and allowing him to grow. It was comfortable, a comfort that he had never experienced before. It was as if he had been immersed in the source of life. His body was transforming, and he could feel the void collapsing as his arms slowly moved. What a powerful force! It was twice, or even 3 times stronger than before. Suddenly, the green light spots dissipated. Lu Yin's eyes went wide as he exhaled. That was it. He had failed. He had actually failed to cultivate the Nirvana tree technique. Even with so many green light spots, he still hadn't succeeded. How many more green light spots were there? He raised his hand to take a look, but the transformation of his body had not disappeared. It had only stopped. Although it had only been a short time, his strength had increased greatly in that short period of time. His body's endurance had also increased greatly. If he fought Clay Blade and Mingyu in this state, he wouldn't be in such a sorry state. He wouldn't have to rely on his divine power to defend himself. He looked down. It was time to leave. Thump. Lu Yin's heart suddenly thumped, and his pupils shrank as he trembled. An indescribable tremor made his scalp feel like it was about to explode. Something was coming. He teleported to the Immortal Master's side. Let's go. Luo Chan teleported and disappeared. He didn't know how far she had gone, but he had to leave this place first. Just now, the Immortal Master had also felt an indescribable terror. Something was coming. In the moment that Lu Yin and the Immortal Lord vanished, an egg slowly floated up from within the Immortal Plume Tree. Its surface was covered with complex gray veins, and as soon as it appeared, the entire starry sky trembled. The rain of blood that had spilled down froze, and time seemed to stop. A sharp claw pierced through the eggshell, and the stars turned upside down. The Immortal Plume Tree, which had been split apart, suddenly merged together. It was as if time had reversed. No, it changed. A low voice sounded. The claw tapped the void, and the feather god's spear disappeared. Jizong was still fighting fiercely. It was unclear whether the unknown had surrounded the Immortal Plume or if the Immortal Plume had restrained the unknown. A feather god's spear descended and pierced through Jizong. The old man, Yu Che, and the others all stopped and looked at the feather god's spear. Red Hero was in front of the divine tree, holding a red umbrella. At this moment, his face was deathly pale. A long-lost fear surfaced in his heart. That old monster was still alive. The unknown had lied to him. It wasn't just the unknown, even the Immortal Plume Trees were trembling. How did the ancestor wake up? Oh no, something is wrong with this tree. Return. The Immortal Plume Trees disappeared instantly, and Jizong regained its calm. This feeling. Is it that old monster? I didn't expect that old monster to still be alive. 8 colors, you lied to me. It's still alive. Red Hero was furious. It's really troublesome. Alive? It's really not easy to deal with. It's just an old thing that's past its prime. If it could die once, it can die again now. Jiu Lei actually didn't kill it. I feel sorry for the humans. With this old thing around, there won't be any humans left in the square-inch space. In the square-inch space, Lu Yin panted heavily and suppressed the palpitations in his heart. He looked at the Immortal Master and asked, what was that? The Immortal Master was also afraid. I don't know. It must be the Immortal Plume. It's a hidden terrifying existence. You don't know. Lu Yin didn't believe it. The feeling that the existence just now gave him was no less than old ancestor Shan's last attack. It was even more unfathomable. It was an abyss that he had never experienced before. It was too terrifying. There was actually such a terrifying old thing in the immortal plume trees. The immortal master said bitterly, I really don't know. If I knew, I would. He didn't say anything, but Luin believed him. If the immortal master knew that there was such an old monster in the immortal plume trees, he wouldn't have betrayed Luin even if his life was in Lu Yin's hands. That would be courting death. The one who regretted it the most now was the immortal master. He had betrayed Xian Plume and would definitely die. After all, he could be caught by Xian Plume. Luo Chan was also trembling at this moment, but it was slightly better than the immortal master. Its cultivation was too low, and it didn't know how terrifying the existence just now was. Lu Yin looked at the immortal master. Do you regret it? The immortal master fell silent. This wasn't the time to express regret. If you gave up on Luo Chan, would you still be found by Xian Plume? Lu Yin asked. Chapter 43-81. This question frightened Luo Chan. She was about to disappear, but she failed and was caught by Lu Yin. Before Lu Yin had even asked this question, he had already decided to control Luo Chan because the immortal master was very useful. Qing he glanced at Lu Yin. What are you doing? Lu Yin grabbed Luo Chan and stared at the immortal master. I'll take care of Luo Chan for you. This way, you won't be caught by Xian Ling, right? If it were that simple, I would have erased it long ago. The immortal master was furious. Let it go. Regardless of whether the Luo Chan existed or not, it would be found by the immortal plume, so it was better to keep the Luo Chan. At least when facing the immortal plume, unless that old monster in Heaven Teller made a move, the other immortal plume would not be able to do anything to it. Lu Yin's tone was cold. I'll help you get rid of Xian Ling. Lu Yin's words stunned the immortal master. Then, he suddenly thought of something. Join the unknown. Out of all the civilizations it knew, only the unknowns could face the immortal plume civilization head-on, and only the unknowns could help it escape the immortal plume civilization. After all, Lu Yin belonged to the unknowns. Lu Yin replied, that's right. Once you join the unknowns, you won't have to fear Xian Ling anymore. The immortal master was puzzled. Why did you join the unknown? Although I don't know much about the history of your human race, I do know that they are the mortal enemies of your civilization. You don't need to know why I joined. In any case, you don't have a choice. The immortal master fell silent. He truly had no other choice. Turn back. That was impossible, as Ming Yu's capture was directly related to it. Even if Xian Ling hadn't seen it, if it dared to turn around, Lu Yin would immediately let Xian Ling know the truth, and it would be difficult for it to escape death. After all, Ming Yu was still alive, and the truth could not be hidden. It didn't believe that Xian Ling would be merciful to it. Was joining the unknown the only way? Lu Yin he looked at the immortal master. He wanted the immortal master to break free from the immortal plume and join the unknowns. It was not to help the immortal master, but to help himself. Killing Ming Yu and destroying the celestial plume origin tree would cause too much damage to the celestial plume civilization. After all, it was worth the reward of a 6 stars mission. If the celestial plume civilization knew that he was the one who did it, it would definitely take revenge. The human civilization would definitely be uneasy. He would not entrust the safety of the human civilization to the unknown's so-called 1,000 years of protection. He had to transfer this matter to someone else. The immortal master was the best choice. Once it joined the unknown, the immortal plume tree would know that it had betrayed them. With the immortal master's strength, it was not impossible for him to kill Ming Yu and destroy the immortal plume tree. As for himself, although his whereabouts were unknown, it did not mean that he had participated in the battle to destroy the immortal plume tree. Even if he had participated, it would have been to cooperate with the immortal master. This was because the immortal plume tree knew that his strength was far too inferior to Ming Yu's. He was completely unable to influence the outcome of the battle. They would rather believe that the unknowable had long instigated the immortal master to rebel, all for the sake of this war. The immortal master had to join the unknowns to divert Xian Ling's attention away from him. Actually, if not for this reason, Lu Yin would not have helped the immortal master. It would have been best for Xian Ling to kill it. Back then, he had wanted the immortal master to escort him to the Seven Treasures realm, but this was unfair to the Lost Clan. After all, the Lost Clan had been destroyed by the insectoid nest civilization. Lu Yin had once promised to help the Lost Clan destroy the insectoid nest civilization, and he still remembered this promise. Still hesitating, Lu Yin frowned. The immortal master said in a low voice, "Even if I join the unknowns, they might not be able to protect me. Xian Ling can teleport. Then stay in Jizong." "Xian Ling can't go to Jizong to kill you," Lu Yin said. He was also helpless. Perhaps he hoped that the immortal master would delay the time to worship the divine tree like him. This was also what he had thought in the past. Back then, he had determined that the most suitable candidate to join the unknowns was the immortal master, but he could not find the immortal master at that time. Now, the immortal master had to stay in Jizong. Otherwise, if he was targeted by Xian Ling, killing him would not be a problem, but capturing him and asking for the truth would be troublesome. Human civilization would eventually be targeted by the entire immortal plume civilization. The unknowns could start a war with Xian Ling, but human civilization could not. If he stayed in Jizong, he would have to worship the divine tree. Lu Yin had no choice. The immortal master agreed. Lu Yin immediately left the immortal master and lay down in the hanging coffin. His consciousness entered Jizong. He also wanted to see how the battle was going. As for the immortal master, he was not afraid that it would run away. First of all, Luo Chan was in his hands. Second, where could it run to? Even if he could not find it, could Xian Ling not find it? Run. That was courting death. Lying down in the hanging coffin, Ming Yan's consciousness enveloped the God Catalog, and the tricolored divine power slowly stripped away. This process was painful, and as the divine power dissipated, his aura weakened. Blood dyed the entire hanging coffin red, making the already scarlet coffin even bloodier. Lu Yin panted heavily. His injuries had been too severe this time. Absorbing the boundless green light had strengthened his body, but his internal injuries had not healed. He was not in a hurry to go to Jizong immediately. Instead, he rolled his die to recover as much as possible. He did not show this state in front of the immortal master, afraid that it would attack. The third time he rolled the die, he rolled 4 pips. Time stop space entered. The die's time stop space was very strange. Whether it was outside or inside, there was a portion of absolute time that belonged to oneself. Now he understood that the die's 4 pips was time stop space. Stop space did not come from a tributary of the river of time, but from the main river of time. He had always used the die's 4 pips to stop time, which was the main river of time. The ability to stop time clearly came from second brother Lu Mo, but how could this ability directly enter the river of time? Second brother definitely did not have this ability. He was still very weak, and that was because of the die. This die was originally a turbid treasure, and it did not have any innate gifts. It had 6 faces, and all 6 innate gifts came from his 6 older siblings. Did this die strengthen all 6 innate gifts? He did not know what kind of turbid treasure this die was, but to be able to directly enter the river of time's time-stop space, could it be a suppressing turbid treasure? Lu Yin recuperated in the time-stop space for several years, and his injuries had improved greatly. His energy had recovered, and only then did he reappear and return to Jizong. As soon as he returned to Jizong, he heard a discussion among the unknowns. He listened quietly for a while and understood that the terrifying existence was indeed the old monster Xianling. Everyone thought that it was dead, and even the unknowns did not think that it was still alive. Did the unknowns not know? Lu Yin did not believe it. He would rather believe that this battle was a test by the unknowns to lure out the old monster. As for the fact that this battle was originally caused by the Xianling, it was not important. The unknowns had prepared a lot for this battle, and Lu Yin was actually one of their preparations. It was just that the unknowns had not expected him to complete it so well. Those Xianling had returned the moment the terrifying existence awakened, and the battle seemed to have been temporarily suspended. Lu Yin is really ruthless. He actually destroyed the Xianling tree. De Mao sighed. This was his purpose from the beginning. But he is still just a scoundrel. He said that he destroyed the Xianling tree, but he did not really destroy it. That old monster has been guarding it all this time. Even Transparent could not do it, let alone Lu Yin. That old monster is the Xianling tree's final trump card. Even it was forced out, and the Xianling tree is not far from destruction. De Mao was disdainful. It had once crushed an Xianling tree, and was also one of the people on the Xianling tree's kill list. Red Hero's voice sounded, "How much power does that old monster have left?" Yu Che spoke up, "Orange, don't be afraid. If that old monster wants to deal with you, we will all help you." His words were pleasant, but they were choking. Red Hero did not care about him at all. Air Mao said in a low voice, "8 colors, how much power does that old monster have left?" It was also very curious. Actually, Lu Yin was more curious about it. It was just a shield, and it had become a spirit. 8 colors said slowly, "I'm not sure. It has been in hibernation since the battle. Even so, it might not be able to recover from that fatal injury. This time, it used up some of its energy to restore the Xianling tree. It definitely does not have the power it used to have. Even if it only has 1 or 2% left, it is still very scary." The old guy was afraid. Lu Yin raised his eyebrows. Was this old guy really afraid? Not necessarily. Now that he thought about it, among the unknowns that he knew, this old guy was the one who hid the deepest. It was able to control the long river of time, and it was not simple at all. Moreover, in the 2 forced expeditions, its opponents were the strongest. At the very least, they were existences that Lu Yin could not touch. Especially the Mudwater Kingdom. When Lu Yin asked it who Ni Bailuo's opponent was, it replied with a he. It really disgusted him. Now that he thought about it, wasn't that the answer? Ni Bailuo's opponent was it? It had already given the answer, but Lu Yin did not think of it. But that did not seem right. The old guy wanted Lu Yin to help it deal with its opponent. If it was Ni Bailuo, then it would not be Lu Yin's turn to act. Or could it be that this old guy had more than one opponent? This old guy gave Lu Yin a feeling that even if he was thrown in front of a terrifying existence like Xianling, it would still be fine. If the transparent keeper of balance was incomparably sharp and domineering and could break through anything, then this old guy was using softness to conquer strength. Lu Yin, congratulations on completing a 6 stars mission. You can now exchange for 2 missions with 4 stars, 2 with 5 stars, and 1 with 6 stars. 8 colors' voice rang out. The other unknowns could not hear it, but Lu Yin could. 8 color knew that he had entered. Lu Yin said, "The unknowns are lacking people. I would like to recommend the Immortal Master to join." 8 color asked, "The Immortal Master of the Insectoid Nest Civilization?" "That's right. Yes, your strength meets the requirements of the unknowns. But because it was targeted by Xianling, Xianling can sense its location at any time. Can you help it solve this problem?" Lu Yin asked. 8 color said, "The unknowns have no obligation to help it before joining. It needs to complete missions and exchange for rewards. What level of reward? 4 stars mission reward. Alright, I'll exchange for it, Luin said. If he did not solve this problem, the immortal master would feel uneasy. Something might happen in the future, and if it could be solved, the immortal master would not need to immediately worship the divine tree. 8 color agreed, let it enter trace. Luin was about to ask if the immortal master could worship the divine tree later, but then he thought about it and decided that it was not appropriate for him to ask. Luin exited trace and found the immortal master. I'll use my 4 stars mission reward. Remember to return it to me in the future. The immortal master's emotions were complicated. From Xianling to the unknowns, its fate had always been controlled by others. Thank you. It could only thank Luin, but it was quite sullen. Chapter 4382. Luin released Master Qingchao from Mount Supreme, and he could bring the Divine Master directly into trace. Master Qingchao looked at the Divine Master and wasn't surprised. The Divine Master belonged to the Celestial Plume civilization, so it was normal for him to appear on this battlefield. He didn't know how much Luin had done. As for the Divine Master rebelling against Celestial Plume and joining the unknown, it wasn't surprising either. The Divine Master had been suppressed by Luin before, and once he was captured by Luin, his life would change. This was what everyone knew about Luin. Also, try not to worship the divine tree for now. Stall for time and don't choose a color. This is good for me, Luin said. The Divine Master didn't understand. He didn't join the unknown, so he didn't understand. Lu Yin's gaze was deep as he stared at the Divine Master. If it's good for me, it's good for you. You understand me. Master Qingchao glanced at Luin. Although this wasn't a threat, it was more than a threat. The more he understood this person, the more he could feel the pressure of this sentence. Soon, Master Qingchao opened the door and the Divine Master entered. He didn't hesitate, nor was he worried about what the unknown would do to him. Things had already reached this point. If the unknown attacked him and Celestial Plume joined in, there was no way he could survive. Luin didn't need to lie to him. The Divine Master was different from Luin. Luin was forced to join the unknown and didn't have a strong enemy like Celestial Plume. If Celestial Plume wanted to attack the human civilization at that time, he wouldn't have been able to delay the time to worship the divine tree until now. The Divine Master was really forced into a dead end. After the Divine Master entered trace, Luin brought Master Qingchao back to the human civilization and lay in the hanging coffin again. His consciousness entered trace. A creature wants to join now. Who? 8 Colors' voice sounded. The Divine Master of the Insect Nest Civilization. Luin will use the reward of a 4-star mission to eliminate the hidden dangers of the Immortal Plume civilization and allow it to undergo an unknown test. Does everyone agree? No. Air Mao was the first to object. De Mao also objected. Luin frowned. He had forgotten about this. When he invited Miaozun to join, these unknowns had also raised their opinions. Of course, they all agreed. It's my right to invite the Divine Master to join. Telling everyone is a form of respect for everyone, and I also ask everyone to consider the unknown's current situation, 8 said. Luin was surprised. Is that so? Hee, you said the same thing when you invited that little fellow to join us. Facts have proven that your decision was correct. I agree. The old man chuckled. Soon after, voices rang out, all of them agreeing. Temporarily postpone the war with the unknowns. After a pause, it continued, why has Gao Tian not returned yet? Bei Qing said respectfully, Ancestor, Gao Tian is facing the unknown's envoy of balance. This is what we discussed before the battle started. We will give Gao Tian a chance to kill the envoy of balance. This way, the unknowns will suffer great losses. Foolish. The starry sky trembled, and a terrifying presence suppressed everything, causing Bei Qing and the other immortal plume to prostrate. Who gave you the confidence to kill that little brat? He is the most deeply hidden existence of the unknowns. Gao Tian might not be his opponent. Bei Qing, Nanling, and the other immortal plume were shocked. How is that possible? Gao Tian can't defeat him. The terrifying presence's voice was terrifyingly low. You all thought that you schemed against the unknowns, but in the end, you were schemed against by the unknowns. Before I went into hibernation, I warned you all not to underestimate the unknowns. The unknown's craftiness is beyond your imagination. Foolish. But he is clearly just a mere. Shut up. The terrifying presence's aura was vast, causing the entire space to tremble, causing all the immortal plume to tremble. After a while, this vast aura calmed down. Do you all have a way to find Gao Tian? All the immortal plumes shook their heads. Is this Gao Tian trying to kill him? It was clearly the unknowns who gave him the chance to kill Gao Tian. Hateful, foolish. The unknowns are just as cunning as those humans. Hateful. Yu Ting raised her head. Humans. Yes, there are humans inside the unknowns. Bei Qing glanced at Yu Ting. I will kill Red Hero sooner or later. Not him, there is. Yu Ting said, hesitating for a moment, and that human has comprehended teleportation. With that said, Nanling remembered, yes, old ancestor, this matter was just about to be reported. You reported that the reason this battle started was because Yu Lu was heavily injured by that master of balance and was almost killed. And before that, it was because of a scoundrel in the human civilization who comprehended teleportation. Boom! The starry sky became heavy, countless cracks appeared in the void, spreading out in all directions. What? A human comprehended teleportation. The terrifying presence roared. Zhang Yang's aura made it difficult for the immortal plume to breathe. Nanling did not expect that one sentence would make the old ancestor so angry. It did not know how to reply. Is it a human? A human can comprehend teleportation. The terrifying presence roared. Nanling braced itself and replied, yes, Yu Lu said so. Also, at the beginning of this battle, that human who comprehended teleportation came here. His opponent was Mingyu, and Mingyu has been chasing him all this time. Yu Ting can testify to that. Yu Ting hurriedly said, yes, old ancestor is wise. That human has indeed comprehended teleportation, and he was the one who helped the unknown set up Tai Ching's sourcebox array to shield them from the heavens. If we had not been prepared beforehand, heavens might have been blocked. Although this human is just a scoundrel and is not very strong, he has many tricks up his sleeves and is very strange. More and more cracks appeared in the void, and in the distance, they were like bolts of lightning that split open the sky. From top to bottom, they were even larger than the immortal plume tree, and they were like red pillars that supported the heavens. Don't worry about anything else. Kill that human first and destroy the human civilization, the terrifying presence roared. The words human civilization had completely enraged it. Bei Qing whispered, what about the battle with the unknowns and that traitorous bug? Nothing is more important than destroying the human civilization first. Do you not understand what I'm saying? Yes, old ancestor. Yes, old ancestor. The immortal master left no trace. In order to complete the trial, one had to destroy a specific civilization before they could join, and there were no exceptions. Now that it had lost Luo Chan, the immortal master's method of movement had become a portal, and it was not used to it. After the immortal master left, 8 colors spoke to Lu Yin again. How do you want to exchange for the remaining rewards? Lu Yin replied, there's no rush. 8 colors, you didn't tell me that the immortal plume tree had such a terrifying existence. I almost lost my life. Shouldn't you say something? Eight Colors' tone was calm. This is a battlefield, and anything can happen. Even the unknowns did not expect it to survive, let alone you. Lu Yin obviously did not believe it, and neither did the other unknowns. Who is it? Eight Colors replied, it's the ancestor of the immortal plume tree. It conforms to the three laws of the universe and controls the turbid treasure. It's one of the strongest known existences within the core space, and it was one of the initiators of the civilization war against the Ninth Fort. Lu Yin's eyes flickered as he stared at the pitch-black no trace. In the distance, the divine tree seemed to have transformed into a giant immortal plume. Ancestor Plume. The initiator of the civilization war against the Ninth Fort. At this moment, Lu Yin seemed to see a corner of the past being lifted. It was clear that there was an enemy. We thought it was dead, but it's still alive. If it's alive, the immortal plume tree will not be defeated so easily. This battle might drag on for a long time, Eight Colors continued. The other unknowns could not hear the conversation between it and Lu Yin. Lu Yin looked at the divine tree. Why did you think it was dead? Eight Colors replied calmly, this is knowledge. Do you want to exchange for it with the rewards? Of course, Lu Yin would not exchange for it. Although he wanted to know the details, it would be a waste to exchange for it with the rewards. It was one of the strongest enemies. Enough, the target was clear. However, this enemy was too strong, and he was far from being able to deal with it. He could not even defeat Red Hero. Chapter 4383. Red Hero was the one who worshipped the immortal plume. Now, Lu Yin knew that Red Hero was not worshipping any ordinary immortal plume. It was very likely that beyond Rang Yu's line of sight, there were many powerful beings that he could not see. Those were the beings that Red Hero was worshipping. Rang Yu was too weak at that time and could not see them at all. It was like an ant. When it saw a sapling, it thought it was a towering tree. In fact, a small sapling blocked its entire vision and blocked the sky. Behind the sapling was a towering tree. In the previous battle, did any immortal plume die? Lu Yin asked. Eight Colors said, not yet. Lu Yin frowned. I have already dealt with Mingyu. How could a knowing trace not kill any immortal plume? Speaking of this, Eight Colors sounded surprised. The immortal plume was already prepared. It created a chance for telling Sky and Invisible to fight alone. In the knowing trace, all the immortal plume worked together. Even the unknowns could not do anything. Are there any powerful beings among the immortal plume that are compatible with three universal laws? Lu Yin asked. Eight Colors answered clearly, yes. I should have told you this before the battle, but time was tight. After the battle, I could only tell you about the powers that you might encounter. Now, I can tell you everything. Lu Yin's expression was serious. At the immortal plume tree, Eight Colors had told him most of the immortal plume's powers. He also mentioned Jiang Lu and Yuting among the immortal plume because Eight Colors thought that he might encounter them. As for Mingyu, the unknowns did not know much about him. Due to the uniqueness of the immortal plume, they thought that they could teleport. Many of them died because they drowned. Most of them knew how to swim. The more one thought that they were safe, the less safe they were. Especially when there were so few immortal plume. After the battle with the unknowns, there were only about 5 of them that the unknowns could recognize. These 5 are Telling Sky, Beiqing, Nanling, Yuting, and Jiang Lu. Among them, other than Chao Tian, the other 4 are all existences that conform to 2 laws of the universe. However, their differences are similarly great. For example, Beiqing and Nanling are experts that are very close to conforming to 3 laws of the universe. Yu Ting and Jiang Lu are normal existences that conform to two laws of the universe. Their strength is similar to Ming Yu's. With their own strength and teleportation, they can unleash the power to challenge those above their level. In addition, the immortal plume has the power of 1,000 feathers and 1,000 transformations. It is even harder to capture and kill them. Lu Yin listened quietly and did his best to recognize the powers of the other immortal plume feathers. He would definitely encounter more of them in the future. And the war before them had yet to end. Suddenly, a door appeared below Jizong, and Master Grass rushed out. Xianling attacked the three universes. Lu Yin's expression changed drastically when he heard this, and he immediately withdrew from his knowledge trace. When he opened his eyes, he saw an immortal feather standing on top of the coffin, and it was about to raise its sharp claws and descend. Lu Yin stared at the immortal plume and opened his heaven's eye. His external pupil incarnation manifested 15 pieces of black armor in front of him. Kacha the hanging coffin was penetrated by the sharp claw of the immortal feather, and the claw tip pierced into the outer incarnation of the pupil, making a soft thud. Xianling was astonished. It was actually able to block its attack. Lu Yin's pupil shrank as the pressure invaded his entire body. This immortal plume could not be resisted by brute force, as it had destroyed the hanging coffin with a single blow. It was definitely an existence that surpassed the mud blade and the bright rain. Even if his physical strength had transformed, he would not be able to withstand it. He took advantage of the moment when his external eye incarnation blocked Xianling's attack to shatter the coffin and teleport out. The immortal Xianling's lips curled up, and a cold glint appeared in its eyes. It was the southern spirit. Although it was an eternal realm cultivator who was compatible with 2 universal laws, it was close to being compatible with 3 universal laws. When it saw Lu Yin teleport away, it also teleported to chase after him. Ming Yu could not kill him, so it came. Lu Yin teleported to the Tian Yuan universe and saw the 2 immortal plume attacking the sect above the heavens without restraint. Mr. Mu was protecting it with his cauldron while Jiang Feng was bombarding it with thunder. The sect above the heavens was in imminent danger, and the outerverse was trembling. Countless stars were shattered, and the astral river was swept away. The innerverse, neoverse, and the starfall sea were all trembling. The immortal plume's attack range was too wide, and it encompassed the entire Tian Yuan universe. Countless people were terrified. It was not only the Tian Yuan universe, but also the spiritualized universe and the ninth heaven universe. The karmic celestial phenomenon was surging, and the azure lotus protector was fighting. The blood tower protector, the startle gate protector, and the others were also fighting. This was an attack by the immortal plume against the human civilization. Lu Yin had not expected the immortal plume to attack the human civilization at such a crucial moment in the decisive battle with the unknown. Why? Was it because he had captured Ming Yu? Had destroyed the immortal plume tree? Or was it because he had mastered teleportation? He had no time to think about these things, he could only kill. Behind him, the Nan's spirit appeared, and its feather god's spear pierced through the void. Lu Yin hurriedly dodged, and he watched as the feather god's spear pierced through the heavens and through the Tian Yuan universe. It destroyed countless stars and killed countless people along the way. The immortal plume was an existence that dared to kill Eternals, and they had their own standards for karmic restraints, which made it very difficult to restrain them. Lu Yin stared at the Nan spirit, and he recognized it. Its 2 white eyebrows extended all the way to its feet. This was the Nan spirit, one of the most difficult existences to deal with among the immortal plume. It was second only to Bei Qing's messenger. Little thing, how did you master it? Teleportation. The Nan spirit raised its wings and flapped them, causing the void to swirl up in layers. It transformed into a gale that covered the entire universe and blasted into the distance. The stars were swept up like marbles and torn to shreds. Lu Yin's eyes turned red, and he teleported away. The Nan's spirit sneered. It did not need to consider what Lu Yin cared about, nor did it need to think about Lu Yin's weaknesses. All it needed to do was kill. No matter what Lu Yin did, he could not make up for the difference between them. Lu Yin teleported away from the Tian Yuan universe and appeared outside the spiritualized universe. Ba Yu, Grandmaster Grass, and Heaven-bearer Eternity were all here. Even if they were here, it would be useless. In the face of the immortal plume, just the moon heron alone had caused the entire human civilization to be flustered. Now, the Azure Lotus Guard had unleashed all of its power, but it was only able to stop Beijing, which was already very exaggerated. Beijing had not expected that the human civilization would have a powerhouse that could temporarily resist it. The Azure Lotus Guard's karmic phenomenon shrunk and no longer enveloped the three universes. He could not take care of everything, as the pressure brought about by Beijing was too great. In just a short while, the Nine Firmaments universe and the spiritualized universe had lost countless lives. Even the karmic wall had been shattered. It could stop the hive civilization, but it was far from being able to stop the immortal plume. What about the unknown? What was the unknown doing? Lu Yin teleported away again, and the Nan spirit chased after him, its gaze growing colder. Although it was completely stronger than Lu Yin was not someone it could easily bully. This brat had relied on his shameless strength to freely teleport away under its pressure. It was no wonder that Ming Yu could not kill him. This brat had to die. At that moment, the Nan spirit paused and seemed to hesitate. Then, its gaze grew even more vicious as it hissed at the sky. The next moment, the immortal plume disappeared one by one, leaving the human civilization. Although the immortal plume had come and gone quickly, it had caused great damage to the human civilization. The losses it had suffered were immeasurable. In the distant immortal plume tree, doors opened one after another, and the battle shifted here once again. However, this time, it was not just the old man, the yellow unknown, and the others. There was also a white light that seemed to be the center of the universe. The moment it appeared, it illuminated the entire immortal plume tree. You really want to protect that human civilization? Aren't you afraid that they will become the second nine bases? A respectful voice came from within the immortal plume tree. An unknown voice also came out, but it was not the 8 colors, but the white unknown. We are not protecting the humans. We are only protecting the rules of the unknown. Rules. It is just a method used by those at the top to rule. It is like a line. Whether you cross it or not, the experience of living in this universe is completely different. Will you bind yourself to that line? The unknown rules are greater than the heavens. Even if the human civilization will definitely regain its glory, they can't do it. Humans can even comprehend my immortal plume's teleportation. This is unforgivable. They do not deserve to have teleportation. After a pause, it continued, and don't forget, you were the main force that once besieged 9 bases. That human civilization will take revenge on you sooner or later. Humans are strange creatures. They can be extremely humble, but they can also be zhang yang to the extreme. The white unknown did not reply. The unknowns attacked one by one. Helpless, the immortal plume could only recall it. In the end, only Nanling, Si Qin, and Changdo were left to fight in the 3 universes. Shang Jing did not expect the unknowns to help the human civilization. It was just like how Lu Yin did not expect all the immortal plume to attack the human civilization. It could only be said that the human civilization was too important in Shang Jing's heart. He wanted to destroy it first. That was the ultimate hatred. The unknowns attacked the immortal plume tree and changed the battlefield so quickly that Lu Yin was surprised. With the previous attack of the invisible unknowns, he thought that even if the unknowns wanted to protect the human civilization, they would at most send 1 or 2. When the strong fought, everyone had their own ideas. It was just a matter of who was exposed first. On Lu Yin's side, Nanling was still chasing after him. However, as the karma's celestial phenomenon enveloped him, Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief. Someone had replaced her. Nanling stared at Qinglianyu, who was standing beside Lu Yin. The human civilization can still develop to this stage. I thought that the useless red hero was the peak that the human civilization could reappear. Lu Yin's gaze moved. Did they really not know about the immortal civilization? Qinglianyu's expression was solemn as he stared at Nanling. I also did not expect that the human civilization of the past would be hovered over by a group of birds. Lu Yin raised his eyebrows. He had never heard Qinglianyu speak like this. His greatest hatred was towards Red Hero, and his greatest killing intent was now directed towards the immortal plume. Nanling sneered and disappeared with a teleportation. Qinglianyu suddenly spread the karma celestial phenomenon. The immortal plume was held back by me just now because it wanted to kill me. Now that most of the immortal plume has retreated, they might not be held back by me. Lu Yin looked around. Back then, Yulu had relied on her strength that was compatible with the laws of the universe. With the combination of teleportation and thousand feathers, thousand transformations, she had killed her way in and out of the human civilization. It was difficult to stop her. Although there were several ways to deal with teleportation, they were not facing Yulu. Nanling descended from above. Even Qinglianyu was afraid of the feather god's spear and did not dare to take it head-on. In the face of Qinglianyu's counterattack, Nanling did not even take it head-on. She simply teleported and disappeared. There was nothing simpler than this. Nanling not only brought pressure to Lu Yin, but also to Qinglianyu. Nanling's strength is not inferior to Red Hero. Qinglianyu was afraid. Go and help others. Chapter 43-84. Lu Yin teleported away, as he could not afford to be passive in the face of teleportation. The immortal plumes were attacking the human civilization, and their main target was actually Lu Yin. Since that was the case, he would be the bait and lure all of the immortal plumes over. In the continent of the Nine Clouds, a gigantic tree branch fell and crashed into the ocean. It was the branch of the mother tree. On the Gate of Wonder, Mitsui held a startling cloud in his hand, and the door behind him was faintly discernible. When the immortal plume appeared in an instant, the door turned from void to reality. Blood Tower Defender gripped the blood blade tightly and attacked. Facing it head-on, Immortal Grove's sharp claws swept over, breaking the blood blade. Blood Tower Defender retreated step by step. He turned around, and the blood blade slashed into the void. The gray color circulated, as if a line was connected to the immortal plume. This immortal feather was called Sichin. It was also an existence that conformed to the laws of the two universes. In terms of strength, it was comparable to Mingyu. It was not something that Shueta Shangyu could compare to. In addition, Shangyu had been severely injured by Sharp Edge. Even if the two of them worked together, they would not be able to block it. Sichin spread her wings, and the feather god's spear shot toward Shueta and Jingmin. The two hurriedly dodged. As Sichin flapped her wings, the entire starry sky was suppressed, and the two of them coughed up blood. Violent gales blasted the ground from above. Rivers evaporated, cities shattered, and wails filled the land. Xue Taiyu spat out a mouthful of blood at Xue Dao. Buy me some time. The upper defense of the Gate of Wonder stabbed out with his spear. Yun Zhao, the shrunken door wrapped around the startling cloud and stabbed toward Sichin. The Sichin was disdainful of the mere human civilization. It raised one of its wings, and the aura of life gushed out. Combined with the eternal substance, it condensed into a giant pair of wings that shot down horizontally. This attack would not only deal with the startling gate upper defense, but also destroy the entire universe. Jingmin Shangyu's face was pale. He gritted his teeth and resisted the pressure to ascend to the sky. Inside his body, the cultivation of the Nirvana tree's fusion technique was activated. His spirit trembled and blood flowed out from the corners of his mouth. The grudge of the past, the hatred of the present, even if he died, he would not allow these strange birds to succeed. Shweta Shangyu gripped the blood blade tightly. His eyes were red, and the line on the back of the blade was dyed red. When it was completely filled, he would be able to unleash the strongest attack of his life. In the starry sky, wings formed from the aura of life fell down. The first wing collided with Yun Zhao, and alarmed Gate Shangyu's pupils shrank. The power of the abyss was completely condensed, and he pushed her up without any regard for his own life. Block, block. With a boom, the starry sky shattered. The startling sparrow stage swayed and cracked. Qing Yun opened her mouth wide, her eyes red. Mother! The red color blossomed from the void, coming from an umbrella. Under the umbrella were Jing Men's Shangyu and Chu Songyun. Chu Songyun opened up Jiao Wen's umbrella and blocked the fatal blow for the gate of alarm. It continued to spread and enveloped Si Qin. Si Qin saw a red umbrella, and her eyes were filled with hatred. She thought of Red Hero. This human dared to betray Xianling civilization. Although it did not participate in the Battle of Nine Bases, Xianling civilization could not tolerate betrayal. Red Hero was like that, and that insect was even more so. Teleportation was a natural counter to the Heartless Tao. Trying to use the Heartless Tao's red umbrella to deal with it. How laughable. Suddenly, it felt a chill run down its back, and it looked back to see Lu Yin looking down at it from above. A red line pierced through the void from his fingertips and wrapped around the umbrella's rib. Si Qin was shocked. Not good, this was Red Hero's move against Xianling. Back then, Red Hero chose not to know and betrayed Xianling. Xianling had tried to kill him several times, but he had used this move to block it. If it wasn't for the fact that he didn't want to become enemies with Xianling, this move would definitely be able to kill one or two. Xianling. Lu Yin couldn't give Si Qin the same amount of pressure as Red Hero, but it didn't want to take any risks. But then, its body couldn't move. What's going on? It stared at Lu Yin's forehead, and around it, there were irregular lines piercing through. They were black. What was this? Some of the Xianling recognized the Ten-Eyed Crow's power, but some did not. Not all of them recognized it the same way, as the Ten-Eyed Crow had died long ago and was no longer within the Xianling's range of apprehension. Thus, there was no need for it to recognize all of them. Lu Yin took a step forward and charged towards Si Qin. His body suddenly withered, but every step he took allowed his body to recover. After more than 10 steps, he had accumulated the maximum amount of power he could absorb. He punched towards Si Qin from above, and this attack surpassed all the power he could muster in his normal state. His body had just undergone a metamorphosis and was now several times stronger than before. This attack caused Si Qin to feel pressured in an instant. At the same time, Shweta Shangyu appeared from behind, his crimson blade glowing with a blood-red light as he slashed upwards. Just as Lu Yin and Shweta Shangyu's attacks were about to land, 2 feather god spears appeared from the side and pierced towards the two. If their attacks landed, they would definitely hit Si Qin, but they would also be hit by the feather god spears. The feather god spears came from the South Spirit. Be careful! Shweta Shangyu shouted. Lu Yin saw the feather god spears and also saw the vigilance and unease in Si Qin's eyes. He changed his fist into a palm and teleported past Si Qin. He grabbed the blood-wielding saber's hilt and threw it out. Shweta Shangyu was thrown out, and one of the feather god spears missed. It pierced through the starry sky and the mother tree at the same time, shooting out of the 9 firmaments universe. The other feather god spear brushed past Lu Yin's body and left a bloody mark on his skin. Xue Xiangyu had no intention of dodging just now, and he would rather take the feather god spear's attack. Xue Xiangyu wanted to slash at Si Qin. Lu Yin did not doubt this at all, as he had seen Xue Xiangyu's determined gaze. That was why Xue Xiangyu had thrown him out. Otherwise, Xue Xiangyu would most likely die. Xue Xiangyu's attack was not enough to kill Si Qin, and it could not even severely injure her. The difference between him and Si Qin was too great, but the feather god's spear could kill him. It was not worth it. The South Spirit appeared and lowered her head. Feather god's spears stabbed towards Lu Yin as she roared, "Ten-eyed crow. You still have the ten-eyed crow's power." Lu Yin teleported away with Chu Songyun. Above the South Spirit's head, the karma's celestial phenomenon descended like a funnel and attacked Nan Spirit. The South Spirit sent Si Qin flying with a claw and teleported away. Si Qin also subconsciously teleported away. Green Lotus Shangyu landed on the spot with an ugly expression. It was too disgusting to fight against teleportation. He looked to the other side and saw Xue Xiangyu panting heavily. His hand that was holding onto the blood-wielding saber was covered in wounds. "Now is not the time to risk your life," Green Lotus Shangyu said and looked at Xue Xiangyu in the distance. "You guys gather. It is more important to protect your own lives." At this moment, the red umbrella opened up in one direction and kept expanding. It was about to cover the entire Nine Firmaments universe. Chu Songyun closed his eyes and did not look at the immortal feather. He only released the red umbrella. The South Spirit and Si Qin teleported outside of Nine Firmaments universe. That hateful red hero. If he did not create this move, we would not be afraid. The South Spirit's tone was low. I did not expect this human to have the ten-eyed crow's power. He must die. Si Qin was puzzled. Ten-eyed crow. That sounds familiar. The ten-eyed crow is a rather terrifying creature. It has 10 eyes and is extremely talented. It has a range of inches, and many fishing civilizations' absolute methods are countered by it. And it is good at killing a mortal feather, the South Spirit said. Si Qin exclaimed, "I remember now. Yu Ting mentioned it before. Its strength surpassed Yu Ting's, but it had lived longer than Yu Ting." The South Spirit said, "You must be careful of that human. Do not look at his eyes. Once you are fixed, it will be difficult to escape. As for the red umbrella's move, there is nothing to be afraid of. Kill the other humans first. Kill them all." "Okay." Si Qin teleported and disappeared. The South Spirit stared at Nine Firmaments universe and teleported as well. Lu Yin stared at the South Spirit and Si Qin. Their target was him, but the human civilization was also within their range of destruction. Any carelessness could lead to casualties. Seeing the South Spirit and Si Qin disappear at the same time, he immediately teleported to Tianyuan universe. At this moment, there were 3 immortal feather in the human universe. The South Spirit, Si Qin, and another one called Changdo. They were all existences that were compatible with 2 laws. Among them, the South Spirit was the strongest, possessing strength that was close to matching 3 laws. The second was Si Qin, and the last was Changdo. At this moment, Changdo was entangled with Master Bitter Lamp, Master Qing Chao, Heaven-carrying immortality, and Ba Yu. It was trying to find a way to break down the defense of the 4 eternal beings. Although its strength was far beyond the 4 eternal beings, it was still 4 eternal beings. It was almost back-to-back defense, and it would not be easy to break down in a short time. If the South Spirit and Si Qin wanted to attack, the best targets would be Mr. Mu and Jiang Feng in the Tianyuan universe. They had no opponents now, so they were still cautious. The moment Lu Yin teleported, the South Spirit and Si Qin appeared at the same time. Lu Yin's heart sank. He expected these two immortal feather to attack here, but he did not expect them to attack together. They would only attack together. "Master, be careful!" Luin shouted. Mr. Mu's eyes widened. He put one hand in front of his chest and waved. Gray flowed and turned into scenes. Upon closer inspection, they were exactly the same as the surrounding scenes. Even the changes in the scenes changed with the changes in the surroundings. It was as if the surrounding void was replicated. There was a cauldron in each of the scenes. Nan's spirit and Si Chin attacked at the same time, and the pressure almost caused the sect above heaven to collapse. This was not something Luin, Mr. Mu, or Jiang Feng could withstand. This pressure was enough to crush everything. Fortunately, the Azure Lotus Emperor's karma celestial phenomenon slashed across without any order. It rebuilt the karma wall that had once surrounded the Tianyuan universe and supported the sky. With a boom, the karma wall shattered. In the Nina Firmament's universe, the Azure Lotus Emperor coughed out blood. Si Chin was fine, but the South Spirit was an absolute powerhouse. In the Tianyuan universe, Luin stared at Si Chin with his celestial eye. Si Chin did not even look and closed her eyes. Feather God spears descended, and the South Spirit's Feather God spears also appeared. She wanted to destroy Lu Yin's group, the sect above heaven, and even the Tianyuan universe. At that moment, the cauldron vibrated, and the scenes appeared. The South Spirit stared at the cauldron. "What is this?" "Be careful. This is the ninth wall's suppression treasure. I didn't expect it to still exist." When Si Chin heard this, she immediately teleported away. It wasn't that they couldn't withstand the cauldron's bombardment, but the key was that the word's turbid artifact had intimidated them. Moreover, during the War of the Nine Bases, every single turbid artifact had displayed an extremely terrifying power, causing even Xianling to be extremely wary of them. They teleported away, but the cauldron was everywhere. Luin was shocked. This was a time album. When did Master learn Zhao Ran's time battle technique? Mr. Mu's expression turned serious. Beside him, Jiang Feng slowly exhaled and then disappeared into the void. He was clearly there, but he could not be seen. Everything had begun from nothing. The universe itself was nothing. He lifted his foot and walked toward Si Chin. His clothes were torn apart at his chest, revealing his black armor. The sharp claws pierced through the armor, but it remained motionless. Nan Ling's pupils shrank. How was this possible? He was actually able to block its attack. Luin suddenly exerted strength in his hands and grabbed Nan Ling, Sr. The aura of the Blue Lotus Guard, who was originally unable to do anything to the South Spirit, suddenly changed. He stood in the starry sky, and the thousand faces karma finger heavenly wheel appeared around him. It wasn't a finger, but 1,000 fingers. Each heavenly wheel was condensed from the thousand faces karma finger heavenly wheel. The 1,000 fingers heavenly wheel contracted the entire karma great celestial phenomenon. From afar, it looked like a blooming lotus. The lotus scattering hands, heavenly wheel, lotus treasure mirror. The Blue Lotus Guard opened its eyes and pointed a finger at Nan Ling. Nan Ling was aghast. This human had actually been hiding his strength all this time. This finger made it feel a chill all over its body. There was danger, it had to dodge. Its aura fluctuated, and Lu Yin's arms cracked open. Blood splattered everywhere, but he still used his godly power to suppress his arms and firmly held on to Nan Ling. Nan Ling wanted to teleport, and Lu Yin did the same, disappearing in an instant. However, in that instant, Lu Yin stared at the Blue Lotus Guard and reappeared in an instant. Nan Ling could not erase what Lu Yin had done in that instant. What it could see was that it had teleported in advance, and Lu Yin had returned after it. Even though they kept changing their positions, they were still moving around the blue lotus guard. The blue lotus guard's finger was about to descend. 1,000 feathers, 1,000 transformations. Nanling used its life-saving technique and split into 1,000 clones that flew in different directions. Only one of them was real, but even Nanling did not know which one was the real one. Only when it did not know could it be untraceable. The lotus treasure mirror spread out at the same time. Why was there 1,000 fingers? The target was the 1,000 feathers, 1,000 transformations. At this moment, the 1,000 southern spirits were hit by the 1,000-finger sky wheel at the same time. In just an instant, the southern spirit's 1,000 feathers and 1,000 transformations was already at its limit. It was impossible for them to teleport away at the same time. What Lord Green Lotus wanted was this instant. Nanling was pierced through one by one, and only one managed to block the sky wheel. However, there was only one sky wheel, and it posed no threat to Nanling at all. It only managed to force Nanling back a single step. Lu Yin took the opportunity to teleport to Nanling's side and grab it. The treasured lotus mirror had been broken, and Nanling stared at the blue lotus guard in front of it. It turned around and clawed at Lu Yin. This human was the greatest threat. Lu Yin raised his head and used the black plate to block the claw. At this moment, Nanling suddenly felt that something was amiss. The sky wheel that had broken through the 1,000 feathers, 1,000 transformations had not disappeared. The blue lotus guard's gaze fell silent. Since he understood Xianling's methods, how could he not be on guard against the 1,000 feathers, 1,000 transformations? From the very beginning, the treasured lotus mirror's target had not been Nanling before it had used the 1,000 feathers, 1,000 transformations, but at this moment. As long as he and Lu Yin touched Nanling at the same time, it would be enough. Nanling slowly turned around and stared at the blue lotus guard. Not good. All sky will transformations karma gathered and condensed into the finger that had struck Nanling. A lotus bloomed at the tip of the blue lotus guard's finger. 1,000 Dao sky wheel, treasured lotus mirror. Bang! There was a loud bang, and Nanling spat out blood as it was sent flying. Its body had been pierced through, and white ripples appeared as it flew into the distance like a shooting star. Lu Yin took advantage of this opportunity to teleport closer. Within his body, the red, silver, and blue lines intersected. It was the tricolor godly power transformation. In the Nina Firmament's universe, the red line under the red umbrella was fake. Actually, it had been real at first, but when Lu Yin had teleported away with Nanling and Si Qin, he had changed it. His goal had been to confuse Xianling. He had used the tricolor godly power transformation to defeat the mud blade, and then he had defeated Mingyu at the immortal plume tree. No one knew about this, and the immortal plume tree had a terrifying existence. He was not sure if Xianling knew about this, so he had used the red line as a precondition to lower Xianling's vigilance. Now was the time for him to make his move. The tricolor godly power transformation surged, and Lu Yin raised his palm and slammed it down, attacking Nanling. The blue lotus guard pressed down with both palms, releasing the great karma celestial phenomenon. It turned into an attack of karma that blasted towards Nanling from another direction, not giving it any time to breathe. The treasured lotus mirror was a technique that the blue lotus guard had hidden to deal with Red Hero, but now it had been forced out. Nanling's threat was no less than Red Hero's, so there was nothing he could do. In the distance, Si Qin was shocked. Nanling had actually been injured. How was this possible? Looking at the distance, there were only a handful of people who could injure Nanling. They were either old monsters who were compatible with the 3 laws of the universe, but the rest were very difficult. Even if this human civilization had the power to injure Nanling, it should not have been able to hit it. He should have hit it. What happened? Suddenly, it also felt a chill. In front of it, a sword edge descended, accompanied by the roar of thunder. Si Qin stared at the human in front of it. When did he come? It did not even notice him. A sword slashed horizontally. 1,000 feathers, 1,000 transformations. Si Qin disappeared. Jiang Feng's sword slashed the air. Behind him, the feather god's spear stabbed, but it was blocked by the cauldron. Jiang Feng was helpless. If it were other eternal realm experts, even if they were compatible with the two laws, they should have hit it, regardless of whether they could injure it or not. However, this Xianling was too disgusting. It was difficult to break the teleportation. When he entered that state, he could not isolate the Xianling from the universe. Si Qin was surprised. Was this the human civilization? She had not participated in the War of Nine Bases and did not understand what the human civilization meant in that era. Now she experienced it. She had almost been hit just now. Although it seemed that the move could not hurt her, she was still scared. Xianling was not afraid of power that surpassed her, but she was afraid of methods that could break her. Obviously, this human civilization had done it. In the distance, godly power and karma descended. Nanling's feathers were stained with blood, and its eyes were gloomy. It was actually injured. Hateful humans, die. They must die. It clenched its sharp claws, turned its body, and flapped its wings up and down. One attack resisted godly power and the other attack resisted karma. With a boom, godly power and karma were both torn apart. Lu Yin's gaze changed. This was the strongest attack he could make at the moment. It could not hurt Nanling at all. Was the difference big even if it was the three-colored godly power transformation? Qing Lianyu's heart sank. This was the power that he was sure he had to join forces with Jiao Wen to fight against. Nanling's strength was comparable to Red Hero. Even if he had hidden methods, he could not deal with it. Lu's combat power was also helpless. Lotus Treasure Mirror was his strongest move. It was rare to be able to injure it once, and it was difficult to have a second chance. Nanling flapped its wings and roared. Its screeching resounded through the three universes, and countless people were terrified. Lu Yin's expression was ugly. He looked at Qing Lianyu. Senior, stop hiding. It's time to use your real strength. Qing Lianyu was helpless. I have already used it. Lotus Treasure Mirror is a killer move specially prepared for Red Hero. Lu Yin looked at him. Senior, you are compatible with two laws of the universe. What about the other one? Qing Lianyu took a deep breath. I am not good at killing. Lu Yin's heart sank. At this time, Qing Lianyu could no longer hide. Furthermore, Red Hero, the enemy, was already clear, so there was no need to hide. This was really troublesome. His mind was filled with killing intent, and his godly power kept trying to drown out his rationality. Fortunately, he had already used it twice, and his body had transformed, so he could suppress it. Lu Yin, Qing Lianyu said. Lu Yin looked at him. The power of karma is very strange. Everyone has a different understanding of it. It can be used to kill or deduce. I have a move that can suppress Nanling, but it needs to be very close to it to help me find an opportunity, Qing Lianyu said. Lu Yin looked at Qing Lianyu and felt uneasy. Senior, could it be a move to perish together? That won't do. Qing Lianyu laughed. I'm not that stupid to perish together with a bird. I'm just restraining it temporarily. It shouldn't last long. I just hope that the battle on the other side will end soon. Lu Yin frowned. Was that so? Don't think too much. Keep your eyes on it. Its target might not be us, Qing Lianyu reminded. As soon as he finished speaking, Nanling screeched again and stared at Lu Yin and Qing Lian. Of course, Qing Lianyu did not look at Heaven's Eye. The mocking smile in his eyes suddenly disappeared. Lu Yin's eyelids twitched. If that smile was not aimed at them, then who was it? Master. Or Qing Lian Yu and the others. Pinnacle mobile version website. Chapter 4386. In the ninth heaven universe, Chu Songyun spat out blood. Above his head, the red umbrella was pressed down, and the violent force smashed him and the umbrella to the ground. Nanling appeared, its body dyed red with blood. The pain made it crazy. It wanted to wipe out the human civilization, so it started with these eternal beings. The feather god's spear stabbed at Xueta Shangyu and Jingmen Shangyu. Jingmen Shangyu immediately opened the door and left with Xueta Shangyu. However, the door was shattered by Nanling's violent force. The two barely avoided the attack of the feather god's spear. Nanling's claws descended, and Lu Yin appeared with Qing Lian Shangyu. Nanling disappeared instantly. Lu Yin suddenly stared at the Tianyuan universe. Not here. It's the spiritualized universe. Ku Deng, Qing Chao, Jia Tian, and Ba Yu, the four eternal beings, stood back to back and resisted Chang Do's attack. Nanling's appearance caused them to cough up blood. Nanling's eyes were ferocious, and its claws fell. The first unlucky one was Jia Tian. The space swamp was torn apart, and the hard shell was broken. He screamed and hurriedly retreated. Ba Yu was shocked. This kind of pressure was comparable to the hero ancestor. She didn't even have the thought of resisting. One by one, the lanterns lit up. What followed closely was the bamboo fence of the grass grandmaster. However, it was unable to resist the sharp claws of the southern spirit and was torn to shreds. Everything happened in an instant, and Lu Yin had no time to help. Master Qing Chao reacted the fastest and took out the door to knowing whereabouts. Nanling stopped subconsciously. Knowing whereabouts. Lu Yin took the opportunity to appear with Qing Lian Shangyu, and Nanling teleported away. Dozens of feather god spears were left behind, stabbing at everyone. Nanling's feather god spears couldn't be blocked, so Lu Yin teleported away with everyone. The feather god spears pierced through the universe, leaving traces. Far away, Lu Yin led everyone out. Appear. Nanling and Chang Do flew across, making a mocking sound. Lu Yin's face was gloomy, it didn't want to kill Senior Ku Deng and the others. Qing Lian Shangyu also thought about it. They almost forgot that Xian Ling could only use the dream of 1,000 autumns to erase the karma binding, but it couldn't ignore it. Nanling had the chance to kill Master Ku Deng and the others. As long as it shot the feather god spear, Master Qing Chao and the others wouldn't survive. It didn't do so, it gave itself a chance to attack. If it killed several eternal beings, it wouldn't be able to continue fighting. It was playing with them. But even though they knew this clearly, they couldn't take the risk. Could they use Master Bitter Lamp's life to test Nanling's acceptance of the karmic bondage? They couldn't do it. To Nanling, this was just a game of cat and mouse. This was its revenge for being injured. The human civilization had to pay a heavy price. Lu Yin and the rest were waiting for the results of the battle between Unknowable and the immortal plume tree. Nanling and the rest were also waiting. From their point of view, Unknowable was willing to do anything for the sake of the human civilization. The battle with the immortal plume tree would not last for too long, and the human civilization would definitely be destroyed. The human civilization did not understand the War of the Nine Bases era at all. The unknowns were also one of the main culprits behind the destruction of the human civilization. Did they really expect the unknowns to help them? What a joke. We can't be so passive. The southern spirit retreated as soon as it made contact. With its teleportation ability, we can't protect them. Qinglian Yu said in a deep voice. Lu Yin felt bitter. Protect them. Wrong, the Azure Lotus Guard was actually protecting Lu Yin as well. Otherwise, even with his tricolored divine power transformation, he might not have been able to protect himself and would have been forced to dodge. If it attacks, we will attack too. Chengdo. The karma celestial phenomenon spread out. Lu Yin released the karma heavenly Tao and merged it with the karma celestial phenomenon. In the past, he merged the karma celestial phenomenon to help himself. Now, he wanted to help the Azure Lotus Guard. He did not believe that the combination of the karma heavenly Tao and the karma celestial phenomenon would not give him a chance. The starry sky rumbled and shook. Countless people looked up in horror. Was the world about to collapse? Ever since the Tianyuan universe came into contact with the core space, the battle changed from one part of the starry sky to another part of the universe. Any battle would affect the entire universe, and it was unbearable. However, this was the only way for humans to climb up. Lu Yin's karma heavenly Tao shocked the Azure Lotus Guard. How many Eternal Realm experts have you killed? How many? Quite a lot. The karma celestial phenomenon boiled. As the Azure Lotus Guard attacked, karma bombarded Nanling and Chengdo from above. Nanling and Chengdo teleported away and attacked Lu Yin and the rest from the left and right. Lu Yin released the external pupil avatar. The crow-fixed body stared at Nanling, wanting to look at them in the eye. The Azure Lotus Guard raised his arm and guided karma through heaven and earth. It turned into a city wall that became thicker and gradually spread. Nanling was cold and arrogant. The feather god's spear shot out and pierced the city wall. Chengdo also attacked from the other side with the feather god's spear. This battle made humans full of grievances. A group of Eternal Realm experts were surrounded and attacked by two birds. Listening to their cheerful and mocking cries, Lu Yin's face became gloomier and gloomier. Master Qudang and the rest wanted to break out of this situation, but they did not have the strength to do so. In the distance, the Blood Tower Guard rushed out but was stopped by the startled Gate Guard. Don't be impulsive. You will only be a burden if you go there. The Blood Tower Guard's eyes were red. He saw the human civilization climbing up, but there was still such a thing. God. Yes, the once invincible 9 bases was destroyed. Was the situation the same? Powerlessness, despair, and anger. That day, the Xianling danced and mocked cheerfully. The same scene appeared again. Nanling looked up to the sky and screamed. It was wrong. It should not have destroyed the human civilization. It should have kept them alive and let them have hope. Then it destroyed that hope and watched them despair and helplessness. This was the perfect ending. Yes, there was nothing more satisfying than keeping them alive. Humans were Xianling's toys. In the distance, a pair of eyes also looked at them with laughter and mockery. It was Yu Lu. Ever since the Xianling and the unknown started fighting, it had been staring at the 3 universes and had not participated in the battle. Even when the Xianling attacked the 3 universes, it did not participate in the battle because it had been severely injured before. It could not help much even if it participated in the battle and could easily die. Now that Nanling and Chengdo were suppressing the human civilization, its cries seemed to be announcing victory. It could not help but look up to the sky and cry out to vent its grievances. Found it. Blue Lotus Guard suddenly shouted. His expression did not change, and he did not make any unnecessary movements. Behind the left, half a year away. Lu Yin teleported and disappeared. He had finally found it. Actually, in the previous battle, he had seen Yu Lu once when he was looking for Nanling. However, Yu Lu had disappeared in a flash and did not stay in the same place, so he could not find it. Now, facing the suppression of Nanling and Chengdo, Yu Lu could not help but come out. Dealing with Chengdo was fake. Chengdo was also an existence that conformed to the laws of the 2 universes. Its strength was not below Mingyu's, so it would be difficult to kill it. The real target was Yulu. The more passive they were, the more Yulu might appear. Nanling and Changdo did not care when they saw Lu Yin teleport away with the group. They were definitely going to win this battle, and the humans were not their match. They only cared about the karmic restraints, fun, and revenge. However, in the next moment, Nanling's expression changed. Not good. In the distance, Yulu stared blankly at Lu Yin, who had suddenly appeared. It wanted to teleport away, but it could not move. It had been watching Lu Yin's group the entire time, and the moment Lu Yin had appeared, it had subconsciously looked over as well. Furthermore, it had not encountered Crow Bind before, so it was now frozen in place. Lu Yin raised a hand and grabbed Yulu by the neck. Mixed hairy bird, I've caught you. Nanling appeared and its claws descended. Lu Yin grabbed Yulu and retreated. Human, you're courting death. Nanling shouted. She had not expected Yulu to be discovered. Idiot, she had clearly told it to hide in the shadows and keep an eye on them. She had not even allowed it to come out during the battle with the unknown, but it had still been discovered. Changdo shot out a feather god spear from another direction, forcing Lu Yin to release Yulu. Yulu was being held in Lu Yin's hand, and it had already broken free of Crow Bind. It immediately used 1,000 feathers, 1,000 transformations, splitting into 1,000 feathers. At the same time, the Green Lotus defense unleashed the treasured Lotus Mirror, also known as the 1,000 Fingers. The 1,000 Fingers could break the 1,000 Dao. In front of Yulu, the South Spirit descended. Its sharp claws bent and grabbed at the void, pressing down on the Green Lotus defense, giving Yulu a chance to escape. The Blue Lotus defense exhaled, and the Lotus treasured mirror suddenly shrank, forming a green lotus around it. The lotus was no longer the wheel of heaven, but karma. It was formed by karma, and the void was cut open, turning green. It did not matter whether Yulu died or not. What was important was Nanling. Yulu could escape, but Nanling would not be free. He had used Yulu as a bait to bury Nanling. The trap he set up was also a trap he set up for the Green Lotus ruler. Yulu teleported far away, escaping with its life. Qing Lian's lotus closed, and a red magma-like power surged out of the lotus, turning the green lotus into a greenish-red color, as if it had been born from a volcano. Lu Yin looked at this scene. Why did it seem so familiar? The sky turned dark red, and Qing Lian closed its palms. Red Lotus Tomb. Lu Yin's eyes widened. Red Lotus Tomb. He recalled the scene that Senior Jiuwen had seen in the past. That person had used the path of ruthlessness to seal himself and his loved ones, as well as the 3 immortal feathers. That was the Red Lotus Tomb, the tomb of the path of ruthlessness. This was created after hearing about the Red Lotus Tomb that Jiuwen had seen in the past. It is not to kill the enemy, but to fight for a chance of survival. Lu Yin, I'll leave Red Hero to you. I'll leave human civilization to you. Qing Lian looked at Nanling. It wanted to teleport, but the void was isolated. It wanted to transform into 1,000 feathers, but all of them were within the Red Lotus. There was no way out. Was it mocking? Was it happy? A human spine would never bend. Even if they died, they would hug you. Lu Yin's heart trembled, and he shouted anxiously, Senior, you said that you would not perish together. It's not worth it. Qing Lian smiled. We did not perish together. Lu Yin took the opportunity to grab Red Lotus Tomb and teleport away. Changdo roared angrily as it searched for Lu Yin. Far away, Lu Yin placed Honglian Zhong back into Mount Supreme and looked at Changdo from afar. He teleported over and slashed down with Golian. Behind him, the triple firmament sword intent formed a river of sword Tao that poured down in torrents. Within the river of sword Tao was a Tao sword. Lu Yin wanted to fight Chang Do and slaughter him. Chang Do continued to teleport, and the sword river couldn't even touch it. In the blink of an eye, it appeared above Lu Yin's head and swiped down with its claws. Lu Yin struck out with his palm, causing his divine power to explode and forced Chang Do back. Chang Do teleported again and attacked Lu Yin from all directions. Human, release the southern spirit, or I'll slaughter your entire human civilization. Lu Yin's expression was still, and he remained unmoved. His sword Tao river chased after Chang Do, but Chang Do casually tore it apart with a swipe of its claws. The Tao sword swept past, and its eyes went blank for a moment. Now was the time. Lu Yin took a step forward, and his withered body recovered as he stared at Chang Do with his celestial eye. Chang Do's pupils recovered, but because he had severed his karma, he could not immediately awaken. He subconsciously saw Lu Yin, Skynet, and Crow immobilization. Not good, it remembered the power of the ten-eyed divine crow. Lu Yin took a few steps forward. He walked in front of Chang Do and condensed his surging divine power between his palms. He pressed his palms together, and it was as if he was grabbing two dazzling suns. Si Qin. Chang Do shrieked, and just as the palms were about to collide, a force pushed Chang Do out of Crow immobilization's range. Boom! Blinding light illuminated the three universes, and the collision of divine power sent the surrounding void flying. Chang Do had just been pushed out and hadn't moved very far before its body was sent flying by the divine power. Si Qin was also sent flying at the same time. Si Qin used a wing to block the divine power, but its body continued to fly backwards. Lu Yin suddenly appeared and grabbed at it. 1,000 feathers, 1,000 transformations. Si Qin split into 1,000 parts, and Lu Yin's hand missed. He clenched his fists, and a sense of helplessness filled his heart. It was clearly right in front of him, but he couldn't even grab it. This was the power of the immortal plume. In the distance, Si Qin appeared and stared at Lu Yin. She glanced at the wings and felt that such boundless divine power was definitely comparable to theirs. He was clearly just a scoundrel, damn it. On the other side, Chang Do teleported away and reappeared. It also stared at Lu Yin in fear. It was very sure that Lu Yin wasn't its match, but where did that monstrous divine power come from? Coupled with the ten-eyed crow's power and strange physical strength, this human's foundation was somewhat unfathomable. Lu Yin panted heavily as sweat dripped down his forehead. The tricolored divine power made him extremely tired, but he couldn't show it now. Even without Nan Ling, they would have a hard time dealing with Si Qin and Chang Do. As long as these two immortal plume didn't attack forcefully, they could use teleportation and 1,000 feathers 1,000 transformations to exhaust the humans. In the Heaven's Origin universe, Mr. Mu and Jiang Feng had solemn expressions. Shui Ta Shangyu, Jingmen Shangyu, Grandmaster Qing Chao, Grandmaster Qudeng, and the others all experienced a difficult battle. They didn't expect that they would still be so powerless when the humans were growing stronger by the day. Moreover, their opponents were only 3 immortal plume. One could imagine how tragic it would have been for Jiu Lei at his peak to face the combined attacks of the immortal plume, the unknown, and the death universe. Other than Lu Yin, they realized that they couldn't interfere. The immortal plume's arrogance made them target all the eternal realm experts in the human civilization from the very beginning, which led to this outcome. Now, Si Qin and Chang Do seemed to want to work together to defeat Lu Yin. Lu Yin could only teleport to avoid them. Dodging again and again made the 2 immortal plume impatient, and their attacks became heavier and heavier, affecting the lives of countless people. Helpless, Lu Yin could only take out the red lotus tomb from Mount Supreme and place it in the middle of the other eternal realm experts. Go get it if you can. One red lotus tomb, one Luin, these were the targets that Luin set for the two immortal plume. Only the red lotus tomb could separate them, otherwise, the three universes would be destroyed. At this moment, the consciousness universe had been rebooted. Because of the battle just now, Luin didn't want the three universes to be rebooted too. Once it was rebooted, they wouldn't be able to stop it, and it would be a disaster for the entire human civilization. Si Qin, I'll deal with this human. You're more suited for that stone. Changdo suggested. Si Qin said, be careful, this human is very strange. It seems that Mingyu's disappearance isn't entirely because of that insect. Changdo's gaze was extremely cold, I understand. Si Qin teleported and disappeared. Lu Yin reminded everyone. At this moment, the battlefield was divided. One was Lu Yin against Changdo, and the other was Si Qin against the rest of the Eternal Realm experts. There were many Eternal Realm experts, but they had no advantage. They had no advantage over Si Qin, so all they could do was try their best to protect Red Lotus Tomb. This was their last resort, and as long as there was a way, Lu Yin would not use Red Lotus Tomb as bait. Otherwise, if it was snatched away, Lu Yin would never be able to make a name for himself. Fortunately, he also had insurance. The red umbrella opened above the Red Lotus Tomb. Chu Songyun didn't die, but he was severely injured and held the red umbrella with difficulty. He was surrounded by a circle of Eternal Realm experts, staring at the immortal plume that kept appearing and disappearing above his head. At this moment, they seemed so helpless. Lu Yin retracted his gaze as Changdo closed his eyes and spoke in a cold voice, I've never fought against your human civilization before, but I've heard a lot about you. Even during your most glorious era of the 9th base, you were irreplaceable. If I kill you, your civilization will never be able to recover. Lu Yin held the Go Lian tightly, you think too much. Even if I die, the human civilization can still rise. Our civilization has a saying, a single spark can start a prairie fire. Changdo sneered, even the former 9 bases was defeated. What makes you think you can? You're just a lowly failed civilization. Lu Yin raised the Go Lian and pointed it at Changdo, I can tear your beak apart. After that, he teleported behind Changdo. The Go Lian slashed down, but Changdo teleported away. The slash missed, and Changdo's claws fell and grabbed at Lu Yin. Lu Yin dodged at the same time. Teleportation versus teleportation. The 3 universes flickered continuously, as if there were countless Lu Yin and Changdo at the same time. On the other side, Si Qin was also thinking of ways to snatch the Red Lotus Tomb, but it wasn't easy to snatch it. One was the red umbrella, which was definitely a weapon of the ruthless path. The other was the cauldron. It stared at the cauldron suspended above the Red Lotus Tomb. The cauldron made its heart palpitate, and it didn't want to have an accident like Nanling. Anyway, Changdo's strength could definitely suppress that human, so it wasn't in a hurry. The human civilization no longer had the power to resist, and the battle between the unknown race and its own race wasn't so easy to determine a winner. The ancestor had awakened, and no one could interfere here. Even if someone wanted to, it would be Xianling. The planet shattered from Si Qin's power. Mr. Mu and the rest stood on the shattered planet, blocking Si Qin's attack. They didn't have time to care about Lu Yin's battle. Si Qin only needed a moment to take the Red Lotus Tomb away. This was a loss that the human race couldn't bear. The starry sky shattered, and Lu Yin used the Karma Sword and the Sword Dao River to slash Changdo. Changdo was afraid of the Karma Sword and didn't want to meet it head-on. It only used the Feather God Spear. Lu Yin used his godly power to attack the Feather God Spear, but Changdo's claws came straight at him. He was suppressed by Changdo, just like in the previous battle with Mingyu. Chapter 4388. Time passed, and Lu Yin panted heavily. His tricolored divine power had obviously weakened a lot, and his external pupil incarnation was also shaking. Changdo was arrogant, and its feather god's spear stabbed at Lu Yin with undiminished power. Did this human really think that he could defeat it by relying on his rascal skills? Lu Yin teleported away, trying to escape. A surging river descended from the void. Lu Yin looked up, and his expression changed. The river of time. Changdo soared into the sky and disappeared into the river of time. In the starry sky, it began to rain. It was the rain of time, and as it dripped down, it seemed to wash the universe's mirror clean of dirt, revealing the feather god's spears that originally existed. Lu Yin was shocked. What is this? Human, you should be honored. This is the battle technique of my immortal feather inheritance, Time of the Long River. It is said that in the war that destroyed Ninth Base, many of you humans died under this technique. You should join them. After that, the feather god's spears that were washed out by the time rain shot in the direction they had been stabbed. Lu Yin hurriedly teleported away, but no matter where he dodged, the feather god's spears would descend. He was far away from the three universes and appeared outside the range of a 10-year eternal life realm expert. The feather god's spears were still descending. They were not washed out by the river of time, but by Changdo. With the condensation of the river of time, the number of feather god's spears kept increasing. In other words, they kept appearing repeatedly. Lu Yin's teleportation distance was far less than Changdo's. Changdo's vision could not see as far as Lu Yin's, but because of the attack range brought by its own strength, it could sense Lu Yin's position, and Lu Yin could not avoid it. In the battle with Mingyu did not use this battle technique, but Mingyu's true and false guardian was far more terrifying than this move. This was still a move that Changdo used to exhaust its own strength. It used teleportation because it knew that it could not hit Lu Yin. However, Lu Yin had to constantly teleport and escape. However, he escaped, and the three universes were riddled with holes. Those feather god spears that were condensed by time repeatedly pierced the void. The three universes were on the verge of collapse. Mr. Mu was also affected and had to change his position. The feather god spears fell like rain, and a disaster fell upon the human civilization. Countless people wailed, and blood dyed the earth red. Blood-colored smoke and dust rose from the sky, and the despair of countless people could be heard. Lu Yin gripped the Go Lian tightly as his body trembled. His fury had reached its peak, but he was also filled with a sense of helplessness. No matter how many tricks he had up his sleeves, they were all useless against Changdo's 1,000 feathers and 1,000 transformations. He hoped that there would be an environment where Changdo would not be able to escape, where he would have a chance to fight to the death. If it was not Changdo's death, then it would be his. Far away, the consciousness universe was collapsing and restarting. 7 Treasures Heavenly Toad 25, who was living in the consciousness universe, hurriedly escaped. He couldn't see what was happening at all. There seemed to be bird cries. In the direction of Tian Palace, the thatched hut was faintly discernible. At the top of a cliff, in a palace, the silhouette who had been sitting there for a very long time slowly opened his eyes. He turned his head and looked in the direction of the continent of the 9 clouds. Pillars. Lu Yin's eyes flashed with killing intent as he stared at Changdo. He watched as it proudly whined, and his mind raced. What could he do to create an environment where he could kill the beast without letting it escape? What was the solution? Suddenly, his expression changed as he looked into the distance. Pillar, child, can you hear me? Lu Yin's eyes twinkled as he heard a familiar and warm voice. It was the progenitor. Progenitor. Is that you? Child, it's been hard on you. At that moment, Lu Yin's eyes turned red. It had been hard on him. Indeed, his past experiences surfaced in his mind. He had fought again and again, slaughtered again and again. He had carried the banner of the human race and walked at the very front without any complaints or regrets. He had walked the line between life and death and struggled with his heart. He had never been weak against anyone, but the progenitor was different. He was the progenitor of the Tian Yuan universe, the progenitor of everyone. Progenitor, how are you? I can't leave yet. The restarting of this universe has awakened me. Child, listen to me. I see countless civilizations and feel the hearts of countless creatures. The universe is dark, but the hearts yearn for light. Civilizations don't interact with each other, but the essence of protection is communication. That is the meaning of all civilizations' existence. I can feel your heart. With a single thought, your heart, your consciousness, your physique, and everything that exists in the universe can be infinitely large. This is what the existence that I have merged with made me feel. With the help of this rebooted universe, you can fulfill your wish. Child, live on. None of us can be left behind. Lu Yin looked into the distance at the consciousness universe and smiled. All right, not one of us can be left behind. Within the river of time, Changdo saw Lu Yin smile. Was this human crazy? How could he smile at a time like this? Si Qin saw it as well and felt an inexplicable sense of unease. However, she did not know where this feeling came from. Suddenly, her eyes narrowed and she cried out, Changdo, run. Changdo was startled and instinctively tried to teleport away, but he did not move. What was going on? At that moment, countless people saw another universe appear. It was as if the starry sky had overlapped and descended between the three universes. It was restarting and surrounding Changdo. Exactly. It was the consciousness universe. The restarting universe had cut off Changdo's teleportation and prevented him from escaping. This was an extremely shocking scene. No one had expected such a thing to happen. How could a universe suddenly descend? Previously, they had only heard of universes being able to move, but they had never heard of a universe descending like this. Both Si Qin and Changdo were horrified. This was not a power that they could come into contact with. Could there be an even stronger existence in the human civilization? Lu Yin's gaze was as calm as still water. Was there no way to escape? Fine, then let's fight to the death. Let's see if your life or mine is tougher. He leapt into the shattered universe. This was the consciousness universe that was restarting. He did not know how the progenitor had done it, but he had actually moved an entire shattered universe to this place. This was probably not the progenitor's power, but rather the power of the heavenly guard. The consciousness universe had restarted more than once, and the heavenly guard had always been there. Senior, watch carefully. This junior will collect interest on behalf of the human civilization. Go Lien, slay. Changdo turned around and stretched out its claws. Bang! Lu Yin's arms were suppressed by godly power, and he slammed them down. Changdo was ruthlessly pressed down, and feather spears stabbed out. It could not teleport, but neither could Lu Yin. Human, no matter what is going on, you are doomed. The tricolored godly power enveloped Lu Yin's body, and the feather spears stabbed into his body, but they did not pierce through. The first time he had used the tricolored godly power transformation, he had used his godly power to resist the mud blade slash. The mud blade had been compatible with the laws of the universe, and there was nothing it could not destroy. 2 slashes had broken Lan Mang's hanging coffin, but it had not been able to cut through his body. Later, in his battle with Mingyu, although his godly power could not resist the feather spears, it had destroyed the immortal plume origin tree, causing his body to transform. His strength had increased by several times, and his defenses had skyrocketed. This gave him the ability to resist Changdo and Mingyu's immortal plume spears, which were compatible with two laws of the universe. Although he could not block Nanling's feather spears, Changdo could not use them to defeat him. Just because he did not take them head-on did not mean that he could not. Changdo's body was pierced by the feather spears, and blood splattered across space. At the same time, Lu Yin slashed at Go Lian, and his vitality continuously flowed into Changdo's body. Changdo's sharp claws clawed at Lu Yin's face, and in front of him, the outer pupil incarnation's 15 pieces of black armor clashed. Lu Yin dodged to the side and grabbed Changdo's beak. His body withered and recovered, and his strength was constantly being absorbed. Changdo's sharp claws tore through the void, and countless void cracks appeared in front of Lu Yin's eyes. The consciousness universe was being rebooted, and this was an apocalyptic battle. Lu Yin's outer pupil incarnation moved to block the sharp claws, and his body soared into the sky. He leaped up and punched Changdo's head. Changdo's wings overturned the sky, and the aftermath was like a river that tore through the consciousness universe, but it was unable to overturn Lu Yin. Lu Yin's punch viciously smashed Changdo's wings, and the crisp sound of bones breaking rang out. Changdo had not expected Lu Yin to be so strong. How could a scoundrel be so strong? Furthermore, he could withstand the feather spear's attacks. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Lu Yin took the opportunity to grab Changdo's beak. I said I would tear your beak apart. With a hiss, Changdo howled in anguish and retreated step by step. Its enraged screeches resounded through the heavens as the flesh around its beak was torn apart, and blood dyed its eyes red. Changdo's killing intent soared to the extreme, and the feather spears stabbed out in a frenzy as its sharp claws clawed out. Bang! Bang! The black armor plates blocked the attacks, and Lu Yin's body was pierced through one by one. The feather spears pierced through, and Lu Yin endured the pain as he turned around and slashed at the Golian. His right hand danced about while his left hand suppressed the Golian, and a tremendous force slashed through the Golian's blade. Changdo's claws brought along streaks of blood and darkness as they sliced through the heavens, splitting the collapsed consciousness universe into two. In the distance, Si Qin, Mr. Mu, and the rest watched in shock. Nobody retreated from this battle of flesh and blood. The most primitive slaughter was being carried out, and they had forgotten about battle techniques and innate gifts. There was nothing left but their instincts to fight like wild beasts. Splattering blood burned the void, and the consciousness universe rebooted even faster. Countless immortal substances fell down like snowflakes. That river of time had long since disappeared. Si Qin had originally thought that Changdo would have an advantage in this battle of flesh and blood with Lu Yin, but she soon realized that something was amiss. Although Lu Yin was bleeding, his strength had not weakened in the slightest, and he was constantly suppressing Changdo. One of Changdo's wings had almost been torn off, and even the hair on its head was gone. Changdo was in an extremely miserable state. It did not want to rush in, as it could not teleport out. It did not know what was going on, but could it be that the human civilization still had some top powerhouse that had not made a move yet? Or was it unknown? Changdo remained on guard. It could not go in, so it could only shout, "Changdo, don't fight him to the death." Changdo shrieked and pushed Lu Yin away with all its might, its pupils constricting to the size of needles. The most disadvantageous condition for Changdo was that it could not look at Lu Yin. If it did, it would be easily immobilized, and that would be the end of it. This human was actually so difficult to deal with. Was this the human civilization? Lu Yin charged out again, taking advantage of the fact that the consciousness universe had completely rebooted to kill this bird. Changdo retreated, not out of fear, but because it felt that there was no need to fight this human. This human was fighting to the death, and it felt like this human was getting stronger and stronger. Something was wrong. Changdo wanted to rush out of this rebooted universe, but it had lost its teleportation. Its speed was not as fast as Lu Yin's, especially when Lu Yin released the starry sky in his heart and used Sirius. The stars shattered one by one, hindering Changdo's escape. Changdo turned around, and an invisible force spread out. Apex mobile version website. Chapter 4389. Lu Yin felt that the starry sky around his heart was being affected, and he hurriedly retracted it. This was an invisible world, and it had finally been activated. Whether it was Mud Blade, Bright Rain, or Changdo, they would only use their trump cards when they were forced to a certain extent. If Changdo did not use his trump card, then no external force would be able to truly defeat him. Lu Yin had been waiting for this moment, but he did not know what kind of power Changdo's invisible world possessed. In the distance, Si Qin's eyes flickered. Changdo had used his full strength. She hadn't expected that he would have to use his full strength to deal with a scoundrel. It scanned its surroundings and was not in a hurry to snatch the Red Lotus tomb. If there was a hidden existence in the human civilization that could do such a thing, it would be difficult for it to leave. It had to think of a way. However, even if there was a hidden existence, it wouldn't be so easy to make a move. Otherwise, that human wouldn't have been sealed together with the southern spirit. Perhaps, like great ancestor Shangjing, he was unable to make a move. Mr. Mu and the rest were wary of Si Qin as they looked into the distance. That life and death battle had caused their hearts to palpitate. Si Qin had faith in Changdo, and they had faith in Lu Yin as well. He had to win. They could have rushed into the consciousness universe to help Lu Yin, but Si Qin was still there. The only one who could help Lu Yin was Mr. Mu, who had broken through to the eternal realm on his own and combined with his stabilized artifact Turbid Treasure. Only then would he be able to injure Changdo. But once Mr. Mu left, the Red Lotus tomb would definitely be snatched away by Si Qin, and he would not be able to escape. Lu Yin could only rely on himself. The void cracked open, and cracks rained down like rain. From time to time, lightning would sweep past, illuminating Lu Yin's face and Changdo's figure. Lu Yin slowly retreated, the formless pressure causing him to feel apprehensive. Changdo had already used his full strength, which meant that he was truly facing a fishing civilization creature that was compatible with two universal laws. Previously, the Mud Blade Ben his body did not conform to the two laws. He only relied on the fact that he had collected two eternal life realms to become important weapons of civilization and possess strength comparable to that of conforming to the two laws. On the other hand, Mingyu was a powerhouse who was truly compatible with two laws, but she had been defeated by Lu Yin's immortal body's internal Dao sword. Changdo was Lu Yin's true one-on-one battle against a powerhouse who was compatible with two laws. Such a powerhouse would definitely have a trump card that could turn the tables, even if Changdo hadn't lost to him. However, if this continued, Lu Yin was confident that he would be able to fight to the death. In terms of physical strength, it was still lacking. The triple firmament sword will slashed out, but it suddenly stopped in the void, unable to move in the starry sky. Lu Yin frowned and slashed at the triple firmament sword will again. This time, it was much stronger than the previous attack, but it was still stuck. As for Changdo's invisible world, he couldn't understand it. Lu Yin clenched his fist, raised it, and blasted out with his god force. Just like the triple firmament sword intent, the divine power rainbow suddenly stopped, unable to move. This truly shocked Lu Yin. How could this be? If it wasn't time, could it be space? What was this invisible world? At that moment, the formless energy suddenly surged and swept past Lu Yin, spreading throughout the entire consciousness universe. To Changdo, the invisible world could cover the entire three universes, let alone just one universe. If the Azure Lotus Defender could do it, so could it. Lu Yin stopped moving. It wasn't that he couldn't move, but that he had a feeling that the moment he moved, there would be unpredictable consequences. The flesh on Changdo's head was still dripping with blood. He looked at Lu Yin with a sinister and ferocious gaze. Don't dare to move. If you don't move, how can you defeat me? Lu Yin stared at Changdo. How did this fellow's invisible world fit in with Chia's? The laws of the universe were the same. Chia's ultimate technique was the drum realm, which used sound to replace the stars. Once enveloped, any movement would cause the drum realm to explode. Even if the opponent didn't move, Chia could still rely on the laws of the universe to make the opponent move and cause the drum realm to explode. Back then, Lu Yin had used teleportation to escape the drum realm. Now, Changdo's technique was actually similar to the drum realm, but the drum realm used movement to cause an explosion. Changdo, on the other hand, used a different kind of energy that Lu Yin had yet to fully comprehend. Changdo moved, heading straight for Lu Yin. Lu Yin raised a brow. Chia had used the drum realm, but it couldn't even move. Changdo's technique was clearly much more powerful. Changdo continued to approach Lu Yin, but Lu Yin didn't dare act rashly. Instead, Changdo raised its sharp claws and slashed down. Lu Yin dodged, but in that instant, his strength was drained. His expression changed as he could clearly feel his strength leaving him. No, it wasn't draining, but rather being restrained. It was as if a rotating gear had been stuck, and his strength had been blocked by an invisible force. He couldn't use it. How could this be? At Changdo's side, the feather god's spear stabbed out. Lu Yin retreated once more, but every time he did so, a portion of his power would be held back. It wasn't just his power, even his celestial eye's power was being held back. His entire body felt like it was being held back by something, as if every step he took was an enemy of the entire universe. He suddenly stared at Changdo. I understand now. You use the power to stabilize space to form a lock, and any movement within space will destroy this lock. This lock is compatible with the laws of the universe, which in turn restricts the power within space. The more you struggle, the greater the restriction. Changdo's eyes flashed with mockery. Human, you're quite clever. This is called the Day of Cessation. Day of Cessation. Lu Yin's eyes flickered with fear. He was resisting Changdo's laws. The more he moved, the stronger the suppression. Was it like the starry sky? I didn't want to use this move against you, but since you forced me into such a difficult situation, I'll slowly torture you to death. Your strength will be completely suppressed by the pressure of the entire universe. How long do you think those humans can endure? Changdo sneered. Lu Yin's eyes were gloomy. This beast wanted to torture him to force his master and the others to save him so that Si Qin could snatch the Red Lotus tomb. In fact, his master and the others couldn't save him even if they came. No one could save him. This was a life and death battle between him and Changdo. Struggle. The more you struggle, the more you'll be suppressed. Changdo raised its sharp claws and clawed at Lu Yin, forcing him to escape. No matter how this universe appeared, it's restricting me. Wrong. This is a grave for you to bury yourself. Lu Yin spat out a mouthful of blood. Not only were the various powers in his body suppressed, but even his blood was also being suppressed. The sharp claws passed by and tore Lu Yin's body apart. Lu Yin was sent flying. Changdo descended upon him again, and the feather god's spears pierced him from above. Human, I'll cripple your limbs first. Let's see how long those humans can endure. In the distance, Mr. Mu and the others' expressions changed drastically. They couldn't help but want to rush out. Si Qin's eyes swept over, looking extremely sinister. Lu Yin avoided most of the feather god's spears, but his body was still pierced by two of them. He fell like a blood-colored meteor. Changdo chased after him, its sharp claws descending as it closed in on Lu Yin. Lu Yin looked at Changdo and released his karma heavenly Dao. He condensed a Dao sword and slashed upwards. Changdo the condensed feather god spears slashed towards the karma heavenly Dao sword. The feather god spears circled around Lu Yin, forming a defensive field that didn't attack. As Changdo descended, they screeched. At the same time, the karma heavenly Dao sword continued to condense and revolved around Lu Yin, crashing into Changdo. The feather god spears and the karma heavenly Dao sword completely covered Changdo and Lu Yin, causing those outside the consciousness universe to be unable to see them clearly. Human, this is the consequence of provoking me, Xianling, Changdo screeched proudly, and its sharp claws descended. The sharp claws pierced Lu Yin's abdomen, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Another claw descended, but it was blocked by the external pupil incarnation. Lu Yin's lips curled up, and blood stained his clothes. Mixed hair bird, this is the consequence of provoking me, a human. Then, under Changdo's confused gaze, he grabbed the claw that had pierced into his body. His right hand held the gullion tightly as he slashed. Changdo sneered. Again. Under the stopped sun, your power is completely ineffective, and you can't hurt anyone. The gullion slashed at Changdo's claw. In the beginning, the battle in the consciousness universe had been able to tear through Changdo's body, including its claws. But now, there wasn't even a scratch. Looking at Changdo's mocking sneer, Lu Yin also smiled happily. Gullion, when things reach an extreme, they can only move in the opposite direction. Whoosh, pure black flames rose up like flames, wrapping around the gullion and spreading towards Changdo's body. Changdo looked at the black flames, and an indescribable horror spread throughout its body. Bone language. Lu Yin's eyes widened. Sharp claws and bones pierced through skin and feathers, tearing apart Changdo's body. Changdo was shocked. Impossible, this is their power. Human, you. Because it was too inconceivable, Changdo had forgotten about its celestial eye. The celestial eye met, and Crow froze. In the surroundings, the feather god spears lost their power and fell off, but the Dao swords were still there. Lu Yin had also activated the Divine Seal Catalog, the Triple Firmament Sword Intent, and the Sword Dao River, which blocked out the gaze of those outside the consciousness universe. It also prevented Changdo's voice from spreading. He had been waiting for this moment. When things reach an extreme, they can only move in the opposite direction to the gullion, causing the power of deathly stillness to appear. When the power of vitality and deathly stillness reached a balance, the destructive power it brought was unparalleled. After using the bone language, Changdo's body contained the power of deathly stillness, which meant that this power could directly invade its body without damaging the surface. Godly power was destructive from the outside, but this power came from the inside out. The stopped sun could restrict Lu Yin's own power, including his blood and even his consciousness. However, the vitality came from the gullion, and the deathly stillness came from the vitality. This power could not be restricted, and even if it could be, it would only be restricted after it was used. However, once it was used, it would cause a fatal injury to Changdo. Changdo howled, and its blood-stained feathers fell off. Around it, the consciousness universe restarted, and space-time collided, bringing out countless immortal substances that accompanied the blood-stained feathers. Feather god spears stabbed at Lu Yin as Changdo struggled. Lu Yin grabbed one of Changdo's exposed bones and withdrew from the state of deathly stillness. Three-colored godly power coiled around it, and he exerted force. With a crack, the bone was torn apart, and Changdo howled in pain. Its wings flapped towards Lu Yin, but they suddenly stopped. The bone spikes in its wings pierced through its skin, causing blood to drip onto Lu Yin's face. Lu Yin's gaze turned fierce, and he allowed the feather god spears to pierce his body. He grabbed Changdo and used his strength to pry open its bones again. In the void, they fought in an even more brutal and bloody battle. Every step they took dyed the heavens red, and the two fell from the sky. Si Qin sensed that something was wrong. Why was Changdo in a worse state? Mr. Mu and the others stared into the distance. Within the consciousness universe, Lu Yin stared at Si Qin. Si Qin also looked at him from afar, but not at the celestial eye. Release Changdo, or the next one to die will be an eternal. She was threatening him with the death of an eternal. Lu Yin loosened his grip, and Changdo hurriedly flew away in the direction of Si Qin. If it wanted to leave the consciousness universe, it would be able to teleport as long as it left this universe. It would definitely get its revenge. Lu Yin watched as Changdo flew out of the consciousness universe, and he took a step forward to chase after it. Si Qin shouted, "Humans, don't force me to kill you immortal realm humans." Lu Yin remained unmoved, but he did not immediately chase after Changdo. Changdo was about to rush out of the consciousness universe. Once it did, it would immediately teleport back to the immortal plume origin tree and would not stop. Changdo looked back, the resentment in his eyes enough to drown out the starry sky. Lu Yin stared at Si Qin silently. There were only 3 seconds left before Changdo charged out. 1. 2. Si Qin stared fixedly at Lu Yin until the final second. Suddenly, right in front of Changdo, outside the consciousness universe, the cauldron appeared. Changdo was shocked and hurriedly stopped. At that moment, the universe trembled as Lu Yin struck out with his palm. His figure instantly expanded like a giant encompassing the universe. The power of belief crossed the starry sky and slammed into Changdo, slamming it into the cauldron and storing it inside. Even Si Qin had not expected this, let alone Changdo. Although she was staring at Lu Yin, she was also on guard against Mr. Mu and the others. She did not know why the cauldron had suddenly appeared and crossed such a great distance. She also did not expect Lu Yin to suddenly unleash such a strong power of belief. This person had been hiding a trick up his sleeve all this time, catching them off guard. The most puzzling thing was that Mr. Mu and the others were so far away from the boundary of the consciousness universe that an immortal realm cultivator could not suddenly appear, so how could the cauldron appear? Unless it was teleportation. Wait, a human. Right below the cauldron, a figure appeared in Si Qin's eyes. It was Lu Yuan. Lu Yin was not the only human who could teleport, but he had teleported the furthest and was also the strongest, which was why Xianling had thought that he was the only one who could teleport. In reality, the first person to comprehend teleportation was Patriarch Lu Yuan. It was precisely because of Patriarch Lu Yuan that Lu Yin was able to awaken this innate gift. Although Patriarch Lu Yuan's strength had not reached the immortal realm, teleportation had nothing to do with strength. As long as he could see something, he could teleport there. Lu Yin had deduced the mirror beam technique and attached it to himself while also giving Patriarch Lu Yuan a copy so that he could use it at a critical moment. This time, he finally used it. Patriarch Lu Yuan carried the cauldron and teleported right in front of Changdo. Changdo was too injured and anxious to leave the consciousness universe, so he could not react in time and was stored inside the cauldron. It gave off the feeling that he was waiting for an opportunity. After storing Changdo in the cauldron, Lu Yuan teleported again and returned to Mr. Mu and the others. Changdo wanted to escape from the cauldron. However, he was suppressed by the cauldron's suppressive force. Teleportation was ineffective as the cauldron isolated him from the outside. At his peak, Changdo would definitely be able to escape, but now, Si Qin teleported and disappeared, charging towards Mr. Mu and the others. Humans, you are too despicable. The red umbrella rose into the air as Chu Songyun resisted the urge to vomit blood and crashed into Si Qin. Si Qin's claws hit the red umbrella and knocked Chu Songyun unconscious. The red umbrella retracted. The next moment, it clawed at Mr. Mu. At this moment, Lu Yin also left the consciousness universe and appeared instantly. He bombarded Si Qin with his divine power. With a bang, Si Qin was knocked back. Its pupils shrunk to the size of a needle as it stared at Lu Yin. Lu Yin stood in front of Mr. Mu and the others. Blood flowed continuously, and his aura was extremely weak. However, he still smiled as he stared at Si Qin. Mixed-haired bird, look carefully. The next one will be you. As he spoke, he pressed his hand on the cauldron and poured his divine power into it. He wanted to refine Changdou. Mr. Mu took a deep breath and followed the laws of the universe, suppress. He cooperated with Lu Yin to refine Changdou. Si Qin shouted, humans, you are courting death. It is you who are courting death. Lu Yin roared and looked at Si Qin without fear. You mixed-haired birds, if one comes, I will kill one. If two come, I will kill two. Let's see how many you can have. He also wanted to use Changdou to increase his karma. However, if he brought Changdou out, it might escape. Moreover, if he did not refine Changdou, how could he intimidate Si Qin? Si Qin's strength was above Changdou. Lu Yin really did not have the ability to kill this immortal plume. However, Si Qin was also extremely fearful at this moment. The sudden appearance of the consciousness universe made it believe that there was a hidden expert among the humans. In addition, with Lu Yin and the other strong cultivators watching, it could not snatch the red lotus tomb. It could not snatch Changdou back. Seeing Changdou howling and being crushed and refined continuously, fear emerged in its heart. It did not want this to happen. It was too miserable. Changdou's miserable state kept replaying in its mind. In front of its eyes, inside the cauldron, blood was boiling, magnifying its fear. Teleportation made the immortal plume arrogant. It thought that it would not die, but in reality, it was constantly losing immortal plume. It took a lot of effort to replenish it. The death of each immortal plume was almost invisible. Most of them did not die on the battlefield, but in the place after teleportation. As a result, death was unfamiliar to the immortal plume. The more unfamiliar it was, the more fearful it was. Seeing Changdou being refined with its own eyes was a huge shock to Si Qin. Creatures like the immortal plume were so talented that they did not experience as much as creatures with less talent when they reached the realm of immortality. Life and death were magnified in the immortal plume's heart. Si Qin's eyes flickered as it stared at the cauldron. Its voice was extremely low. Humans, release Changdou and Nanling. I can guarantee that the immortal plume will not attack you again. Lu Yin and the others looked at Si Qin coldly. There was no hesitation in their eyes. Humans rose from blood and fire. Their willpower was firm. Although they were afraid of death, looking at the entire civilization, they would rather die standing than live kneeling. This was especially true when facing mortal enemies like the immortal plume. They would kill as many as they could. Kill until they were terrified and did not dare to attack. The initiative should never be taken by others. Humans, do you really want to fight me to the death? Si Qin screamed, wanting to threaten them. Lu Yin stared coldly at Si Qin. Mixed-haired bird, do you know how we humans have survived since the ancient times? We hunt. We catch wild beasts and birds. What? Since when can prey threaten the hunter? Behind them, Ba Yu looked at Lu Yin's back. At this moment, Lu Yin was very unfamiliar and very tall. Time continued to pass. There was no longer any sound of Changdou in the cauldron. Outside the cauldron, there was boiling vitality and many eternal substances. If one looked at it from above, there was a glaring light flowing in the cauldron. It was Changdo's flesh and blood that had been refined. Mr. Mu looked at the cauldron. The ninth wall is a turbid treasure. It has refined the immortal plume. It can be considered a consolation to the ancestors. Shwe Pagoda, you said, this is only the first. It will not be the last. Lu Yin grabbed the cauldron and slowly turned it. The light inside was like flowing water. It swayed and made Si Qin dizzy. It was frightened and a chill went straight to its head. It teleported and disappeared. There was no need to stay. Changdo was dead and Nanling was sealed. Without the immortal plume's support, it did not think that it could defeat the human civilization. Lu Yin alone was not something it could easily deal with. Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief and almost fell. Fortunately, ancestor Lu Yuan caught him. Little Seven, how is it? Lu Yin waved his hand. I'm going to the Mirage domain. It will be quick. With that, he teleported and disappeared. Everyone was vigilant to prevent the immortal plume from appearing again. At the same time, in the immortal plume tree, the battle was intense. Si Qin returned and went straight into the tree. Then, a monstrous anger resounded, shaking the universe. Bei Qing and the other immortal plume retreated. They did not understand what had happened. He, the old man and the others also retreated and confronted the immortal plume. Aren't those the immortal plume that attacked the human civilization? Why are they back? And there's only one. De Mao was puzzled. The old man laughed. It won't be a crushing defeat, right? Impossible. The human civilization has the number of immortal realm experts. There are many of them, but it's impossible to stop 3 immortal plume, Mao said. No, there are 4. There's still one hidden. This was Che, his voice calm. From his tone, it seems that the old man is very angry. 8 colors, what exactly happened? Pinnacle mobile version website. Chapter 4391. Small doors appeared beside the unknown beings, and 8 colors' voice sounded. Human civilizations Qing Lian and Nanling were sealed at the same time. Changdo was refined to death, Yu Lu escaped, and Si Qin returned. That one sentence made the unknown beings fall silent. That human civilization could actually do such a thing. Not only did they not lose against 3 immortal feathers, but they even killed one. It was unbelievable. One had to know that Nanling, Si Qin, and Changdo were all existences that fit the laws of the universe. They were ranked in the middle of the 10 feathers, especially Nanling, who was second only to Tell the Sky and Bei Qing. How could they be sealed? Human civilization's growth exceeded their expectations. That's not good. Human civilization defeated 3 immortal feathers. It means that even if we attack, we won't be able to win. 8 colors, how long has it been since Lu Yin joined? More than 1,200 years. In just over 1,200 years, the human civilization has been brought to such heights. How terrifying. I'm panicking. I'm panicking too. The universe shook again. A towering immortal feather flew out from the immortal feather tree. As its wings flapped, heaven and earth swayed. The pressure it brought made the unknown beings retreat. How exaggerated. Shangjing, what a terrifying old monster. Just an old fart. I didn't expect it to still be alive. Retreat a little more. Give it some face. Specks of white starlight descended like a curtain, blocking the path ahead of the group of unknown beings. What followed closely were endless phantoms of portals. In an instant, they covered the entire universe. No one could clearly see how far they were. This was the world of the door. The unknown white knew the origin of the unknown doors. White, don't interfere. This is my fault. The grudge between the immortal feathers and human civilization. Shangjing was furious. His aura surged as he wanted to suppress the starry sky. Opposite him, the white starlight flickered and said gently, "The human civilization you speak of is the one I promised to protect for 2,000 years. That's human civilization. Don't forget, the descendants of Jiolei, your unknown enemy." Shangjing was furious. "You don't have to repeat yourself. I don't know how to keep my promise. If I say 2,000 years, it means 2,000 years. Do you really want to go against me? This is war. You're courting death. You can try." When his voice fell, doors vaguely appeared around the immortal feathers one after another. This made all of the immortal feathers uneasy. Even an expert like Bei Qing couldn't break free, so how was this possible? He wondered what level White had reached. Even it was like this. The starry sky was silent. No one spoke. This silence did not last for long. As the countless fragments of sharpness around the immortal plume tree rose into the air, it attracted the attention of both sides. It was a fragment of the transparent sword. Previously, the transparent unknowable had used this sword to stab into the immortal plume tree, but it had been dragged away by Bao Tian, who had been prepared for it. The transparent sword had also shattered, but Lu Yin had used the tricolored godly power transformation to use the transparent sword to destroy the immortal plume tree, which had led to the awakening of Shangjing. Shangjing had awakened, and Lu Yin had run away. The transparent sword in Lu Yin's hand had shattered even more due to the destruction of the immortal plume origin tree. It scattered across the starry sky like glass shards, and no one paid any attention to it. At this moment, these dreg-like transparent sword fragments rose into the air and gradually condensed back into swords. This scene shocked the immortal plumes. Bei Qing was overwhelmed with shock. That was impossible. The transparent sword was like this, which meant that the unknown master of balance had returned. Could it be that the heavens had lost? Lost? On the unknown side, they all stared at the transparent sword. It was impossible to tell what they were thinking, but it was obvious that the scales of victory were tilting towards the unknowns. The eight-colored godly power still did not appear. Only a voice came from a small door. "Xian Ling Bao Tian, life and death unknown. The master of balance has returned." These words confirmed the result of the battle between the master of balance and Bao Tian. It pushed Xian Ling Bao Tian into the abyss and sent chills down the unknown's spines. They were well aware of Bao Tian's strength. At the beginning, they had given Lu Yin a 5-star mission reward to seal Bao Tian and prevent him from coming out. In their minds, Bao Tian had once been Xian Ling Bao Tian's strongest expert. Now, this strongest expert had been defeated, life and death unknown. The unknown master of balance had returned safely. The gap between Xian Ling Bao Tian and the unknowns was widening. In addition to the losses of Nanling and Changdou, as well as Mingyu's losses in the previous battle, it was obvious that Xian Ling Bao Tian had lost this battle between civilizations. However, this result might not be what all creatures wanted to see, even if the unknowns themselves did not know. Shangjing's aura suddenly disappeared, and the surging pressure receded like the tide. His voice became much gentler. "I thought it was a trap, but I buried myself." Bao Tian's fate was his own. He overestimated himself and can't blame anyone else. At the same time, congratulations to the unknowns. This master of balance has been well chosen. The unknowns did not reply. Shangjing raised his head and looked at the transparent sword. "Can you tell me, is Bao Tian dead or alive?" A calm voice came out. "He escaped, life and death unknown." Shangjing's gaze was deep. He escaped without even returning home. Looks like he's not far from death. On the opposite side, the old man chuckled. 10 feathers, including the hidden you, a total of 11. How many are left? Hee hee. Shangjing said in a low voice, we lost this battle. There's nothing to say, but even if there's only one left, the unknowns will have to risk their lives if they want to devour us. 8 colors spoke to the immortal feathers for the first time on this battlefield. After this battle, as long as the immortal feathers don't start a war, the unknowns can let go. There was no objection from the unknowns. Letting go meant letting go of the immortal feathers, and also letting go of themselves. If they really fought with their lives on the line, no one could guarantee that they would survive until the end. Moreover, both sides were increasing the karmic restraint. The immortal feathers could sleep with the dream of 1,000 years, but what about the unknowns? This was also the reason why not a single immortal feather died on the battlefield. The unknowns were all retreating. They only sought stability and victory, not slaughter. Speaking of which, the greatest achievement of this battle, other than defeating the Master of Balance, was Lu Yin. Whether it was blocking Bao Tian or destroying the immortal feather tree, they were all done by him. Ming Yu and Chang Do died in his hands, and the sealing of the Southern Spirit and Qing Lian Shangyu was also related to him. After fighting for so long, everyone was tired. Although it was not long, it was more tiring than any other battle. Both sides did not speak anymore. Shangjing slowly sank into the immortal feather tree. Si Qin could not help but ask, what about the Southern Spirit? It's not dead, it's just sealed. Shangjing opened his mouth. His tone was terrifyingly calm. The unknowns are watching. We can't take it away, but it's not easy to kill it. There will be a chance. In the end, humans are trapped in their own cocoons. Si Qin was silent. There was something it did not say. What if the human civilization handed the Southern Spirit to the unknowns? If it could think of it, so could the Shangjing ancestor. Since it did not say it, there was no need to ask. The unknowns are treating themselves as the masters. Did they really think that they could achieve glory in the world? Even the 9th base was defeated. The unknowns won't last long. With that, Shangjing fell into a deep sleep. Bei Qing, Si Qin, Yu Ting, and the other immortal feathers also slowly retracted their auras. Their bodies were covered in gray, and the dream of 1,000 years condensed. Once they fell into a deep sleep, it was equivalent to giving up on the battle. Yu Lu returned and vigilantly glanced at the unknowns in the distance. It also slowly fell asleep in the dream of 1,000 years. Seven was still difficult to deal with. At first, he thought that there were only 10 immortal feathers. Shangjing did not count. However, it was not easy to deal with an additional immortal feather, let alone Shangjing. Although Yu Lu and the Southern Spirit were gone, more than half of the remaining immortal feathers had reached the strength of 2 universes. Shangjing, in particular, was unfathomable. He wanted to take the opportunity to destroy the immortal feathers, but he knew that it was impossible. The unknowns allowed the immortal feathers to sleep. The battle was over, but they did not want to fight. They could not start another war. The human civilization could not withstand the immortal feathers' attack. He teleported and disappeared. It was time to go back and deal with the aftermath. On the spot, the 8-color door also disappeared. After this battle, the unknowns had a clearer understanding of Lu Yin. Although this person was not in the eternal realm, his strength was extremely strong. He was so strong that he could stand on equal footing with any of the unknowns. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.